up on Mr. Announcer Person. Jeff and Bill back next Monday. I'm Peter Boyles sitting in. And, of course, it's Wednesday morning. But dig this. This is the 10th of July. It is 7:10 day. 7:10 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. And good morning. 7:10 KNUS Weather Center weather. It's going to get there. 93 the high today. 96 Thursday. Now watch this. 101 on Friday. 100 on Saturday. Back to 101 on Sunday. Many things to talk about. It is time for the Olson Report. Ladies and gentlemen, and his secluded, seemingly abandoned warehouse in a seedy part of town.
That's right.
Huh?
How did you know?
The Green Hornet.
How did you know? In a cave somewhere.
That's right. Seemingly abandoned warehouse.
Man, hey, how do you I love 100-degree weather. How about you, Pete?
I don't mind it.
Yeah, it is why. It's Colorado.
No.
You know, you grew up in Pittsburgh, so you know what it feels like when with the humidity and heat. We don't have any humidity.
Well, as my brother and I say, when the humidity and the temperature are the same number.
Yes. That's hell.
That'll make you brand new. Like,
no doubt.
98 and 98.
Yeah. Yes.
Huh?
I had plenty of those in Alabama and
sure.
Texas. Oh man. Yeah, that is brutal. That's why when people talk about the heat here, that just crack up because all you have to do is go to shade and you're good.
Yeah, I was on my motorcycle yesterday. It was wonderful. It was great
man,
weather.
how was it? Did you ride around the city? Or?
No, I'm getting a big deal. There's a really great shop in Denver, and it's called Bitchin' Stitchin'.
Is that right?
And I've known these guys, and they make
cool.
Well, they don't call them seats; they call them saddles. But for for motorcycles.
Oh wow!
So I'm having sort of a custom one made, and
awesome.
So it's really it's great history stuff. Where if you look at European bikes or Japanese bikes, you notice how the rider of the bike leans forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, visualize how the English or the Europeans ride horses. They lean forward. American cowboys did what?
Lean back.
They sat straight up or lean back.
Yeah. That's right.
So if you look at Harleys and you look at, Indians and, the American-made motorcycles, we sit straight up on the bike like cowboys did.
Yeah.
And if you see the British bikes or the Japanese bikes, European bikes, Ducatis, Aprias, it doesn't matter. You lean forward, put your hands out straight ahead of you, almost locking. That's how they rode horses. Isn't that? I mean,
that is interesting.
Yeah. So we ride motorcycles like you
rode like John Wayne,
like cowboys rode. Absolutely. And so
that's interesting. So leaning forward though, man, that doesn't look too comfortable. I don't know.
Did you ever ride a sport bike?
No. I love looking at them, but I'm sorry, I can't. After I got off my uncle's Honda one time in the 70s and burnt my leg, I was done.
Well, sport bikes it's a whole other boogie. And I have good friends who sell them and Ducatis and to make you brand new, you get on that motorcycle and one of those, what they call quattro valves or what are they called, They have ceramic tail. They have 4 quad underneath the back seat. Get on that bike.
Man, the engineering is incredible. On those things. They really are.
The people who race those bikes, and I've seen only one live. I saw it in Daytona. Mm-hmm. But they said they have a medal. They're so internal, but they call it unattainium. We make these motorcycles racing, and I'm sure it's true with Grand Prix cars. You can't get it, and the competition is so intense. Not so much in this country, but is growing in this country. And plus, now they're doing something called bagger racing, they're taking and they're doing 180 miles an hour in the tracks and baggers.
Man,
and they're just great. Harley Davidson's doing it, and Indians doing it, and they have bagger racers, and really, 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 just intense young racers, but they're racing bagger motorcycles like a street glide, but
that's crazy.
But
they got to be brass, man.
Oh, you gotta see it. I mean, you have to see.
Oh
you know,
wow!
grip-
So wait, what's the baggers? What does bagger mean?
Bagger means it has saddlebags.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
Has
if you,
saddlebags.
there's motorcycles come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, but
Yeah.
but baggers. We remember this country where we all went through a big chopper stage. I had
Yeah.
choppers, and I had all of those.
We used to make our bikes into choppers.
Sure.
And that's all we do. We get those forks, and all of a sudden we're making choppers, right?
What was that Schwinn bike that?
Yes.
What was it,
Had
boss? They had banana seats on them, and
Yes.
they were in the 60s and 70s, and there was a name for them, and
Right.
it was past.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well,
That's what we tried to make our bikes into.
Well, they were knocking off choppers.
Yeah, no doubt. And
Yeah.
then we'd paint them every other day.
Oh, sure.
We go down to-
Stingray, Kelly Michaels,
Stingray.
Stingray.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I should have known that.
Well, they had-
Kelly. Thank God.
They
Kelly's
had
here.
littler tires. Did they have a bigger tire in the back or anything like? Because I don't remember that.
Mhm. I don't think so.
Because that was past my time for riding bikes. But
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're the same. I mean, the Stingrays I knew were same size of tires, but yeah, the way they're designed and the seats.
Oh,
kind
well,
of
they did.
like
They-
what you were saying.
they put they had they had ape hangers on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have apes on mine, and
And my mom used to, in the 50s, she used to love her bike. She used to talk about it all the time. And now you see them all the time. Those were those big bikes that you saw, the bicycles that you saw in the 50s. Those are cool.
Oh, the bike the first pedal bike.
Yes.
And growing up like we did, but I came up with half of the money, and I think my dad came up with the other half.
That's right.
It was a J.C. Higgins.
Really?
That thing must have weighed.
J.C. Higgins.
That bike must have weighed 80 pounds.
I bet.
It was like, and I think I put up $6 or $7, and he put up, and I used it
Solid.
on my paper. Oh, they were made out of iron, I believe.
Right. I was gonna say
Oh,
it had, and then in Pittsburgh, man,
hills. Little
right.
kids, 12-year-old kids had legs like Sherpas, like
So was
that.
your house on where you grew up? I'm sure it was on a hill, right?
Oh yeah, everything was
Yeah.
on a hill.
Yeah, every day. Every
Yeah.
time I go to Pittsburgh or
Everything's on a hill.
Cincinnati, everything is on a
There's a
hill.
lot of woods, and it's on a hill.
Yep. Exactly.
I'll do that.
Everybody in Pittsburgh has strong legs,
You're walking all the time.
Yeah.
One more before the Olson report begins. I got a good show. Have you ever looked in the refrigerator in a radio station?
Oh Lord.
Have you
Or
ever?
TV? Hey, I think TV stations are worse. I kid you not.
Maybe.
Now KNUS is awesome.
Get out of
because,
here.
I
No,
mean-
it isn't.
Look, the TV stations I worked at, man,
No,
those refrigerators are disgusting.
no, the world is a relative place. I mean,
Yeah.
there is better, and there's stuff growing in there.
Oh man,
Flaky,
is it
man.
that bad? Crowley hasn't been in there lately.
Crowley's already upset with me this morning.
Is
So,
he?
yeah. And you don't mess with Crowley. Leave Crowley
No,
alone.
you don't mess with
No.
the man. No,
That's right.
absolutely
Working for the
not.
man. No,
So
Mark,
the
it's okay.
refrigerator's a mess, huh?
But it isn't so much that. It's like there's food and bags, and
A
there's
lot of green stuff.
a lot
and
of stuff.
white
Oh,
stuff.
Here's somebody just sent us this. Some stingrays. I didn't know this. Here, get ready.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, if I can move that little thing around. Okay. Some stingrays had 20-inch rear wheels and 16-inch fronts. I thought so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't remember that. Wow.
Because,
That's pretty cool.
choppers, they call them bigs and littles.
Gotcha.
And,
Yeah.
putting building choppers
Yeah.
it's an art form. It truly
Yeah, it
is.
is.
And there are people that there's a guy named Roger Bourget, probably the most gifted chopper builder
Is that
amongst
right?
many. Oh yeah. And then I had a couple of Rogers bikes, and we're friends, and man,
The guys who paint those also,
Oh,
the airbrushing
man.
or it's just incredible.
did you ever hear the name Von Dutch?
No.
You ever see you'll see young teenage girls walking around, and they have shorts on, will say Von Dutch on the rear end, or
Oh.
Von Dutch hats.
Oh yeah, every time I'm looking at rear ends, I see.
No, come on.
Absolutely.
Or there was a thing, the flying eyeball.
Okay.
It's an eyeball with wings.
Okay.
And that's Von Dutch.
That's
And
fun.
so Dutch was there's a guy named Jeff Decker that I'll get on the radio show when we go to Sturgis, and Decker's dad wrenched with Steve McQueen and desert raced, and so Jeffrey, there was a hangar that Steve McQueen and Allie McGraw lived in, and they had all the great bikes and everything that McQueen had, and cars, and I actually got to meet her, and we talked about it. But Decker was taken there as a little boy, and then there's this legendary Von Dutch, who was insane. One just quick Dutch story that everybody tells Von Dutch stories, but he would, if you went to him and told him what you wanted, he'd throw you out. But they said he could sit there on a creeper board and paint one side of a car, swing to the other side and just freehand replicate it or duplicate it. And the legendary Von Dutch, and there's all the stories about. That wasn't his.
So he's an artist. They were that whole Southern Cal, Big Daddy Ed Roth, and remember Big Daddy? Big Daddy Ed Roth.
Ed Roth and Von Dutch and and Daryl Starbird, and all these guys, they created a culture, man. And all the stuff that you see now in motorcycling with the sleeveless vests that are called cuts, and the styles and the paint and the handlebars, that comes from the one percenters. That all comes from this. Everything comes off the street. Right. Everything comes from the street.
Now, is that California mostly, or?
Yeah, it was Cali, after the Second World War, where a lot of this stuff begins. But it's the culture is. That's why I tell people to see the bike riders. For somebody like me, bike riders is really cool. But
yeah, I gotta check that out.
But those were the guys, and if you understand how culture works, and I don't pretend to, but everything came up off out of the clubs. They don't use the G word, but it comes up out of the clubs, comes up out of the subculture, the car culture, all that stuff. Yeah. They develop, and the same thing is with rap music, clothing styles, but particularly motorcycling that I love so much. But the cuts and everything that goes with it, that stuff comes from. And now Harley Davidson cashes in, and everybody sells it. Wow. But it came from those guys, and a lot of the Latino stuff. There's these they're called ficlas, I think is how they pronounce it. But the Spanish subculture, Hispanic subculture is building these incredible motorcycles. Wow. And where are they doing it? Southern Cal. So all that kind of
creativity,
stuff. That's where it comes from.
And then they would be blown away if they saw this Indian store that's near me up here in northern Colorado. That's these stores are incredible.
Absolutely. Those are
I'm
great
not
stores.
even a biker, but
Indians are
they're amazing.
They're Indian. They're making good motorcycles.
Are they?
I know folks that ride Indians, but you're absolutely right. If as they said, if Dutch was alive, Decker says, if Dutch would be able to come back from the dead,
would he like it or
no? He would not. That wasn't who he was, and
that's right.
He said he would go around ripping T-shirts off of 16-year-old girls, not for that reason, but because he didn't like it. He didn't. Anyhow, we tied this baby up, didn't we?
Heck yeah, man. That's what you do. That's what you do best.
Well,
you're the best, Pete.
The best is here, right? You. But it's 7/10 day.
That is so cool.
All right, so here's
what did Crowley have balloons in the office or
no? It's Kelly told me.
Oh, Kelly did. Kelly has a cake. He probably has a big sheet cake already.
Working for the man, Kelly Michaels. But
that's awesome.
So here this is and by the way, Michael Bennett says he doesn't believe that Biden can win.
Yeah.
And so does Biden, this is an open lines question, but I have an umbrella question. Does Biden look to you like he's leaving that job?
No.
Yes, you're right.
Last night, I'm like,
Yes.
wow, man, he was as good as he's ever gonna be, and he wasn't great,
Oh.
but he read the teleprompter
He-
for 13 minutes, and he leaned in it,
Ah,
and he did, and I'm like, oh wait a minute, this dude is not gonna move.
thank you.
He
I mean,
is
I'm the
not.
one. Well, you got overs and unders, and you got a bet down. But
Right.
I'm like, by Friday, the guy. No,
Yeah. Now I'm changing my mind. No,
You and
you're
I.
right.
I'm going
You're
back.
right.
I'm going back to the window.
Right.
I'm putting more cash in there. Hey, look.
That's right. Drop it right now. Here we go.
But does this guy look like he's leaving that job?
No, it was strange last night.
I watched it.
This is free drama. I mean, it's just incredible.
I got somebody. I wrote down a bunch of good questions. Modestly, he says a bunch of good questions. But my premier question was, does this guy look like he's leaving? I watched him too, and I'm going,
Right.
Peter, don't not so fast.
Right.
All
I
right.
mean, it's I'm bewildered, but here we go. I mean,
All right.
it's kinda
A bunch of
dangerous, but,
people, by the way, have sent pictures of stingrays to the radio
that's all.
station.
Our listeners are the best.
They
They're
said
the best.
they're called orange crates.
That's
This
awesome.
guy said,
Orange craze.
I had to orange crate. My buddy had a gray ghost. Oh, I see. They must have been colors.
gray go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Here, listen, there's one for sale. Authentic Schwinn Stingray Gray Ghost
Schwinn Stingray.
Karate, pristine condition, very
Wow.
rare. Take
Wow.
a guess at the ask.
$500.
$1,200.
Wow. That must be,
And that's
that must be
not
great.
not
condition.
including delivery. And
Amazon will take care of it.
There, and
or
that's
whoever.
exactly. It's got ape hangers on it, and it's got a knuckle.
Man.
It's got a knucklehead front, Springer front end, and
Oh, that is so cool.
authentic Schwinn Stingray Gray
Schwinn
Ghost. Spit it out.
Yeah.
Karate, pristine condition, very rare,
That is so cool, man. Oh, wow.
and shipping is $72.23.
$72.
That's shipping.
Wow.
That's shipping.
That's shipping.
What did that bike
Wow.
sell for new? Cal, can you see where what they sold for new? I mean,
$39.
I don't know. See this? I mean, I was done with. I was well into my motorcycle era when all this began.
Yeah. We couldn't afford new bikes.
Oh no!
We had all the parts from other bikes,
Remember-
and which was cool. I mean, it was awesome.
Remember, there was a kid in the neighborhood that was a wrench,
Yes.
and I wasn't that kid.
Oh man.
That could
no,
fix-
neither was I.
He could fix brakes or
Yes. Oh, we had. Oh, definitely. His name was Kelly, as a matter of fact.
doing it
not
right
Kelly
now.
Michaels, but
How about
another
this?
Kelly.
Remember when there were bikes that you called English racers
English racers.
instead
yeah.
of they're 10 speeds, but they were called. They had squeezer brakes, hand squeezers.
Yes.
We had
yes.
coaster brakes.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
If we have brakes
at all. Did you ever get your pant leg caught like in the chain
Oh yeah.
coming
Oh
around?
my goodness. And we used to the hill that we had, we used to come down that thing
Oh,
and
fly.
build the ramps and jump tires.
Yep.
Everybody wanted to be Evel Knievel in the 70s.
Everybody.
So
I got an evil story.
I know you
80 or $90 back then, Kelly said.
Is that right?
At $1,200 this morning.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I
Wow.
met his son.
Huh.
Robbie.
Oh
Knievel.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen him before. Yeah.
He's gone now, but
yeah.
I got a Robbie Knievel story, scared everybody.
He came in the studio,
No, he
or he's on the phone. Met him at a
we
bar.
were together, yeah. And that was, after I gained my sobriety is when I met him. But he do you remember Dan Haggerty played Grizzly Adams?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We used to ride
Definitely.
together, and he
Wow.
wrenched. He's in Easy Rider. He's wrenched on the bikes, and so
Wow.
he's a real. And his close friend was Robbie Knievel. This is
Wow.
we were in Sturgis, and it's a long way around the barn. So he was supposed to jump that night at the Buffalo Chip, and they had Russian guns or something. They were going to shoot him, and he was flying. Oh, no, seriously, going to come down the middle, and so they were staying in Rapid City, and so Peter, and he calls me up, come on over. And I said, oh man, he's no, come on over. And they had this party going, and they had like the what's that suntan lotion? Hawaii Tropics girls.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was an outrageous
Hawaii
party.
Tropics bikini contest.
Oh, it was like, and it was Robbie Knievel.
Really?
And Haggerty, and like,
wow, that's pretty cool.
Some fellows who were probably like wanted. And anyhow,
we're out on bail.
And I don't, so, and they said he was supposed to jump that night, I think at midnight.
Oh man.
And
really?
Yeah. And I said, if this guy's jumping, I'm, and about 11 o'clock, they announced, it's too windy for Robbie to jump.
That's funny.
Oh man. He was like, ooh. No, Decker was with me, where I was with Decker, and and all those guys. But it was they got there, and it's and it was like you could lick your finger and hold it up, and you couldn't, there was nothing. It's too windy for Robbie was wipe slick.
That is hilarious.
Oh yeah, but I mean, he was
in rapid.
I got along.
Got
along with him really well. He was Haggerty's pal, and.
Wow.
And Haggerty was Haggerty, but
yeah, that was a big dude, right? Haggerty.
He would tell you. Plus, he imbibed, but he said that one night he's telling me, he said, that GD Bear made more money than I did. That's what he told me. He said, wow. I said, was the bear cool? He said, the bear was cool.
That's funny, but the bear made more. Was there a person in the bear?
No, it was some guy owned the bear.
Yeah, I'm sure that was those animals that they use in those things.
But the guy owned it.
Wow, but that bear made a lot of money.
Oh, we got to do this. We got to do this. There's a reason why you're here. Quit the screwing around, huh? All
right, sorry about that.
It's time for the Olsen report.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
All right, 59 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the lower 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story:
full-scale breakdown, all because they can't decide which of their candidates is more unfit to be president. Sleepy, crooked Joe Biden or laughing Kamala?
All right, Colorado's Michael Bennett, as Peter just said, tells the New York Times this morning that former President Trump is on schedule to win in a landslide, and he wants to know that the Biden campaign and Biden can vigorously campaign against Trump, and his voters here in Colorado are scared to think about Trump in a second term, the dictator. Trump in South Florida last night, speaking to 45,000 supporters, including Marco Rubio and Byron Donalds, VP candidates.
So Marco and Byron and everybody, here's what we're going to do. You guys can be referees if you like. Let's do another debate this week so that Sleepy Joe Biden can prove to everyone all over the world that he has what it takes to be president. But this time it will be man-to-man, no moderators, no holes barred. Just name the place, anytime, anywhere.
President Biden kicked off this week's NATO summit with a speech. Sounds like the Democrats are now the war party without question. Pretty fired up about taking care of Ukraine.
Even before Russian bombs were falling in Ukraine, the alliance acted. I ordered the U.S. reinforcements at NATO's eastern flank. More troops, more aircraft, more capabilities. And now the United States has more than 100,000 troops on the continent of Europe. NATO moved swiftly as well, not only reinforcing the 4 existing battle groups in the east, but also adding 4 more in Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia, essentially doubling NATO's strength on the eastern flank.
My gosh, we're going to take care of Ukraine and everyone else, but who cares about our own southern border? Biden will also hold his first round of talks with the new British Prime Minister today. Tuesday, both House and Senate Democrats met behind closed doors to discuss Biden's future. What does old James Carville think?
Some of these press conferences, it reminds me of a book they made me read in college called Ship of Fools. A bunch of desperate people sailing into disaster. And, you know, I just think that cowards have never been criminals in a war yet.
You gotta keep on your toes. Toes, that is.
Yep, man. Fed Chair Jerome Powell told a Senate committee Tuesday he wants to see more evidence inflation is cooling before cutting interest rates, but added that waiting too long could hurt the economy and the labor market. The suspected shooter at Yellowstone National Park allegedly threatened violence on a larger scale. The park explained Lucas Fussner had plans to carry out a mass shooting during Independence Day events outside the park. He was holding a woman inside against her will when park rangers found him with a gun last Thursday and killed him in a shootout. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Reds beat the Rockies 12-6 on Tuesday. Back at it today again at 5:10. And Trump at Doral last night challenging Biden to 18 holes again.
I'm also officially challenging Crooked Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here on Doral's Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world. One of the great courses of the world.
Yes, it is.
That's amazing, isn't it? Wasn't that great?
That was great, man. And then he spoke for over an hour.
They're like growing up, you know. Like I'll kick your ass. You know?
Exactly. Oh, it's like all my brothers and I, man. Back in the day, it's funny. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
57 in Aurora, 53 in Lafayette, 59 in Denver. Peter continues. He's in all week for Jeff and Bill. It is Wednesday, hump day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Sunny to partly sunny, and it's going to get hotter and hotter in the coming days. Temperatures in the low 90s. Lows tonight near 60. 90s Thursday. Upper 90s to lower 100s Friday through Sunday. Only a slight chance of isolated thunderstorms during that stretch. Nights in the 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Wednesday morning, everyone. It is 7:10 day, July the 10th, 2024. 7:10 KNUS. I heard everybody say it. It's going to be hot. 7:10 KNUS Weather Center weather today. It's going to be the coolest day, 93. So get ready. Boy, the wall this morning just lit up on the back of those bikes. I grew up in Tionesta, Pennsylvania. There's a name. And I learned to ride on hard tire Western Flyer. Whew. All right, let's start. I don't know what the phones are going to do here. It's open lines. Jay, you're on a radio show. Good morning.
Got a funny story for you. I'm a dirt biker. So I'm not a big Harley guy, but I'm born and raised. We chase cows, you know, with our that's what we did. We didn't have horses, so we used motorcycles.
Oh, of course.
When you got a big pasture, it's 2 miles by 2 miles.
Sure.
So anyways, I got a funny story. I had a beer one time down in Dallas, Texas. I flew down there, and I wish I'd have got a signature with Evel Knievel, which back in the day, he was, growing up as a kid, he was my hero.
He was everybody's hero.
But he's got a bar. You're right. But he had a bar. He's got a bar down in the airport.
Huh.
And he stops in there, and he goes. I said, okay, da da da. So it was just me and him. I'm catching a flight out, and he goes, the kid's a dirt biker. He doesn't ride those bikes, but he rides dirt bikes. He goes, don't let him pay for that beer. And I'm like, who the heck was this guy? And he had his hat and his jacket and his boots was all the same thing.
Yeah.
It was a light green. It was a light green alligator skin.
I totally believe it. He went through a fortune. Evel did. Everybody was an Evel fan. I shouldn't say everybody, but I certainly was an Evel fan. And I never met him. I met his son Robbie. But I've heard.
And how's he? Has he got the same personality?
He's gone also. And
yeah, that's true.
It would be so hard. Your dad's Evel Knievel, and you're gonna jump bikes. How tough could that be? I mean, but he set out, and he was riding different motorcycles. I mean, if you look at the bikes, the old Ironheads and stuff, he was jumping the fountains.
Oh man, they had no suspension. I'm a dirt biker, but they had back. You look back in the 70s, you're jumping something that's got no suspension,
no armor, no body armor. Nothing. And so when I did see Robbie jump once, but he was doing all the right stuff. He was all geared up. He was going further than his dad, but by that time, there were so many other young crazy kids jumping all kinds of bikes. But Evel, I don't know if Evel was first, but he certainly
started it.
Oh well, no, well there were all these.
You're a lot older than I am, so yeah. Well, what did you see when you grew up? I mean, it had to be Evel Knievel.
No, Evel. I mean, I was. I've never been a grown man, but I'm saying that Evel. But there were these guys that would come, and John Bandemir, and I'm wearing a Bandemir shirt this morning, but John Bandemir and I have had these great conversations because they grew up in promoting too at the drag strip. But there were dirt. There was a dirt track, Heidelberg Raceway, and we started to go to Heidelberg when I was 12 or 13 years old, and they would bring in these stunt drivers, and they would bring in these car shows that were like, for instance, there would be a guy on a motorcycle, and they'd build a wall, and they'd light it on fire. And he'd go around the outside of the track, and I don't know what he was riding, a Sportster or something, one of the early ons. And then he'd put his head down, and they'd light the thing, and he'd just crash through the wall of flame. And I still see the guy every year, the Wall of Death. And then there was this guy, that come and blow himself up with dynamite, and then there was, Kelly Michaels give me the eye, but the guy would blow himself up on and Bandemir said the guy's name was Blasto, and you got to go with that. I mean, Bandemir's you got to go with Bandemir, but we would go and see that stuff, and they would like get up on two wheels and drive their cars on two wheels, or they would head at each other on the track, or just do, stuff when you're like 12, 13 years old and a little car geek and a motorcycle geek. That stuff was so it was way different than the shows you see now. It was certainly different than, and the racing, motorcycle racing was dirt track stuff. It was all dirt tracks and flat tracking.
Is that place still open where they put that paved track in for dirt bikers down there in Denver? I mean, I'm out here in northeastern Colorado.
Yeah, but they're going to lose that, I think, and don't hold me to it. Now the Bandemir sold all that stuff out to, and the Roonies are friends. I ride motorcycles.
Did they really? So Bandemir's gone?
Yes, it's gone. And
okay, well, Julesburg, where I live out here, Julesburg, Colorado, they got that racetrack, and they do it every other. Well, weekend.
I think, racing is a warm weather sport, and you still see stock cars and all that kind of stuff, but it's with some exceptions, it's in the South. And motorcycle racing, like Grand Prix motorcycle racing's European and Asian. It comes here, but it doesn't get the attention as it does in Europe or in Asia, where I don't know why. I mean, it's the difference between that and certain like car racing, and it's just. But if you have it, you have the bug in you, then you know what it is.
No, you're right. That bug in you about the racing but being on the road like you do, I mean, with the ape hangers and stuff that. I mean, I'm a little guy. So, I mean, what was weird is when we go up to Estes Park and stuff like that, I always had a crotch rocket.
Yeah.
Is what they call. But I now always ride with, 5 or 6 Harley guys
Sure.
or whatever, but they're bigger people than I am.
Sure.
So a crotch rocket is easier for me to ride, and they didn't care.
Oh.
But then you get up there, and some of those guys, they get into whoever owns that crotch rocket.
I know.
I'm going to beat his, and I'm like, they're like, you want him? And then 5 or 6 guys stand up, and they're like, you leave him alone.
That's pretty much over now, too.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's people, you wave to everybody, riding a motorcycle. That's close enough. So I'm going to jump. Hey, Jay, great first call. Thank you, brother. Thank you. We got a break.
Appreciate
All right.
it.
The man says take a break. 303-696-1971. Good morning, everyone. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. A hot day coming your way. I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellows. This is 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. President Joe Biden has promised more air defences for Ukraine at the opening of the annual NATO summit. It's the 75th anniversary of the alliance, with support for Ukraine topping the agenda. But the president is fighting for political survival with questions about his age and mental capacity. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
Welcoming the NATO leaders to Washington, Joe Biden hailed the alliance and promised that Ukraine can and will stop Russia. Any of his critics expecting to see a stumble like the presidential debate would have been disappointed. But this wasn't evidence that he can handle high-pressure situations because he read off a teleprompter throughout. That opportunity will come on Thursday when he faces an unscripted press conference, the first since that disastrous debate.
What's believed to be the earliest photo taken of a First Lady has been bought by the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery. The recently discovered image of Dolly Madison, wife of 4th President James Madison, is believed to date back to 1846. The Smithsonian Institution paid just over $450,000 for the image at auction. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Morning, everybody. It is 7:10 day. It's right. It is July the 10th, a Wednesday, 2024, 93 the high, 96 coming up. We'll go back to the phones. Hey, Dwayne, you waited, man. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Thanks.
It's okay, Peter. I'm calling from Kazakhstan, so I don't even know what this is going to cost me.
Shoot.
Yeah, tell me about it. I was out here on a quest to find a Ferrari, and we found it. And I thought I was going to have this whole big thing where I could sit there and videotape it, show the world and everything else.
Man.
My benefactor who came with me, and he has the cash and I don't, he said, I'll take it. And I was like, no, I have a story. I have all these different things I want to do. He goes, I bought it. Ferrari's going to restore it, and the game is over. Nobody gets to see this car but me. And I was like, well, I did sell you an F40, back in December, so I guess I have to be smiling because you're my flight back.
What kind of dough? What kind of dough did the car sell for?
7 figures.
Okay. Oh, they have to, sure. Oh man.
And it's a 1966 240 TT in yellow, and it's in Kazakhstan. Okay, go figure that one out.
Listen. How did it get there?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Her father was in East Germany, the side on the other side of the fence where they shot people.
Yeah.
And somehow he traveled back to Kazakhstan, and there we are. So we're 3 hours east of Star City. So,
wow.
I was also to do all this really cool stuff and everything. And I was like, yes. And he goes, I bought it.
That stuff turns up. Did you ever read about all the Rolls Royces that were in India during the time of the Raja?
Oh, God, yes.
Oh,
and Duesenbergs and stuff like that. You're just kind of like crazy.
And they were the White Rajas, the White Raj, and then they just had these, and they would transport them literally through jungles to get to where they wanted to get them to.
Well, they just found a GT40, a 2006 edition, sitting in a barn for 15 years outside of Georgia, outside of Atlanta.
I believe it.
And it has so much mold in it right now. It kind of looks like something out of the, it's just bad.
That there's a term called a barn find, BARN.
Yes.
And guys are finding like strap tank Harleys, or some guy finds a legitimate cord or something. And I just love this stuff. I mean, I'm not any kind of a wrench, but boy, I just love cars and motorcycles. And I those YouTube sites are great. So how are you going to get this thing home?
Well, my benefactor has already taken care of everything. He'll go onto his private plane, and we'll do that. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have a man when he bought the F40, it only had 90 original miles on it. I had to put it in my trailer, and he bought the trailer, he bought everything when he bought that. And I was sitting in the house I called my insurance company going, guys, I need to raise the insurance premium.
Yeah.
And they said, how much? I said, $4 million.
Yeah,
and they're laughing. And I said, no, I have something here in the house. If it burns, I'm dead.
I agree. Did you see, here we are, did you see Paul Newman's Daytona Rolex auctioned off? Did you see that auction? Huh.
I cried.
That was just a blow. I mean, I'm drawn to that stuff. It shows I just go, man. But so when you get by the way, as the man said, come up and see me when everything rolls over. But what do you do with the Mecum auction and those guys, Barrett Jackson? Do you think that's on the up and up?
Well, it's Robin Williams said it best many years ago, and he said, God's way of finding out you're making too much money is to provide cocaine.
It's cocaine. Oh, yeah. Cocaine is a way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, so it's kind of the same thing with cars. A car that would sell at West Palm Beach, where Jackson will sell for less than at Tucson and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the whole thing of who's there and who's got money to throw around. Part of the reason I called, besides listening on the 710 KNUS app, is I'm restoring a Honda Dream.
I got it.
160.
It was the first I had a Honda Dream. I did, legitimately. I said there's two kinds of people that admit they had a Honda, or the people that lie about it.
Well, it's true. Very much true.
I had a dream.
It's all like that.
I had a dream, and there's a guy that had this museum up in Sturgis. He had a shop where he was selling old bikes, and he had great old bikes in there, and he had a dream, and they looked like little road kings. And so I had a close personal friend with me. We parked and walked in, and I said, "What do you want for that bike?" I was gonna put it in my living room, right? I said, "What do you want for that bike?" He gave me the number. I was floored.
There's a Subaru dealer here in town 30 years ago. He had sequential serial numbered tan and white Harleys, and he had turned them into lamps between the handlebars.
Sure. People
next to the couch, and I was like, that's cocaine money right there. He goes, oh no. He said, I had cocaine money years ago. This is just stupid money.
Yeah. Well, I know guys that have strap tanks in their living room, and to me, it makes all the sense in the world. To other people, it doesn't. But if you have something like that, I'm already trying to book Decker for this week or this weekend, but they just know stuff.
There are things you just do. It's 107 today in Kazakhstan, and the day is coming to a close because we're 12 hours ahead. But I had to call in on the baggers. Those things flex more than my ex-wife. And those are crazy.
And I've been, you go out and look at them, and you just think, man, like, what was the thing? Little old man, same old man, but. Somebody got a great picture. A guy sent me his new HD. It's a Harley. It's a 117. It's a breakout. It's a great looking bike. There's just something, cars and motorcycles, and it's,
two bikes scared me.
Yeah. Which ones?
Two bikes scared me. Well, the Hayabusa, of course. I was insane to sit there and grab a full handle on when you don't know what you're doing.
I've ridden one.
The XR 750. Yeah, and the XR 750 on a mile. I rode that and I came off of it and I did the race for the weekend and I said, thank you, I'm done. I'm going to go back to 500.
The guys let me ride they say a Busa. They let me ride it. And the same day, Johnny Beldock had one of those, what are they, quattro valves or what they are. And he said, I took it up I-25 and brought it right back. I said, and when you see these guys do that at 180, 200 miles an hour, grip to grip, and it's a ballet. Those bikes are dancing, and I think, wow.
Did you see the video of the guy from Colorado Springs to Denver in 20 minutes?
Yes, I did.
I got to tell you, I mean, that's something you sit there and say it was worth a $10 bet, but I really don't. I feel sorry for him now legally. Peter, it's been an honor as always. Thank you so much,
when you get home, man. Thank you. All right. What we're about to do is 1010. I love this. 710 day, 710 KNUS. Coming up, Dick Wadhams. And the Colorado Republican Party just is in a tailspin. And it can't pull itself out. Then I do want to talk about, we opened the show, but again, talk radio, no man, it's master. Does Joe Biden look to you like a guy's getting ready to leave? Does Joe look like he's going to chogy? I mean, and then locally and indeed nationally, Senator Michael Bennet, our Colorado senator, says he doesn't believe Biden can win. And you get down a list, but I really like to ask some umbrella questions about who's running America, but who owns America? And then subsequently, if you own it, you run it. What is the great line? If you own 51% of anything, you control it. That was what Wright Mills said in the book, The Power Elite. Step one, all of us, you notice how he got caught by his home network, ABC. So he's doing he did that ABC interview that we talked about. We saw it on Friday, which I think really was controlled and cut short by the Biden handlers. But Steffi, and so he did a TMZ answering a question from like a passerby in Midtown Manhattan. And the guy said, do you think Biden should step down? And so of course he's Good Morning America and he's This Week guy. And he said, and he says, I don't think he can serve 4 more years. Boom. ABC was on him like, you know what? And he kind of had to, well, that's my own opinion, Man, you got to snap back into line for the boys, man. You're working for the man. So a lot to talk about because that rolls into who's running the show. But does Biden look to you like he's leaving? I watched that NATO speech. Did you see it? Does that guy look like he's booking? So coming up, we'll drop with Dick and we'll get back into open lines. And for the Saturday show, I just put a request into Jeff Decker, legendary sculptor and motorcycle aficionado, and say, see if Jeffy can do the show, and try for David and try some of the other guys. We got a minute to go. So Michael Bennet says he doesn't believe Biden can win the 2024. And you want to say, you know what? There was a line that guys said when I was growing up, no, and there was a substance that followed that no. Dick Tracy, where did you park your squad car? Michael Bennett says he doesn't believe, but there are these polling data, and now it's early on that's come out and said, well, maybe Kamala can beat Trump. And guess who's in the wings? Lady Macbeth, Hillary Clinton. Stay here, 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles on 710 Day. It is 7-8, everyone. Peter Boyles in for the day. Captain Bill will be back here on Monday. I have the rest of the week, including Saturday morning, on the air everywhere. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather on 710 Day. It's hot, 93 today and tomorrow 96 and 101 degrees on Friday and 100 degrees on Saturday, 101 degrees on Sunday, and the beat goes on. It is time for hour 2 of the Olson Report from the seemingly abandoned warehouse on the seedy side of town. I don't know if you saw the Stephanopoulos story, but
yeah, who is he talking to?
Talking to TMZ, but he's
is that who
it's kind of this man on the street thing, but we talk about how the networks line up. Boy, they snapped him back. Did you see that?
No, all I heard was he said he doesn't think he can go another 4 years, correct?
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
Well, the network said you're only speaking for yourself and you're not speaking, you know,
okay.
it'd be like Kelly Michaels saying that you're only talking for yourself, but you actually get a paycheck from 710K or from Salem, right? So when you're at the palatial estate and you're doing the news, that way you were say something, well, you know, Blake was only speaking for himself. No, you're working for the company. Quit it. Anyhow, got a bang out of that. Yeah.
Right. No, that's pretty. They reined him in quickly. It's funny watching the media right now. It's just so ridiculous. Where have they been in the last 3.5 years?
Well, that's it.
You know? Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the big fraud going on to me.
Well, there's so much turmoil, and after yesterday's show, that all of a sudden, you know, the buzzsaw reappears. But you know, and you ask yourself, first of all, I watched the NATO speech, which I'm sure you and I've spoken about it already. But does Biden look like a guy who's getting ready to leave the job?
No, it looks like he got juiced 3 times more than he did before.
Serious.
and whatever's going. I mean, that was after what, 6 o'clock Eastern time when he gave that speech, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And he wasn't supposed to be, you know, good from 10 to 4. I mean, I still don't think he was good, but you know, it's obvious he's reading the prompter, but you know, he only messed up like 3 times.
Yeah,
but it really wasn't. But he's intense. He looks like he's aggressively going after this, obviously.
The note I wrote to myself is that speech was part of his campaign to stay in office.
Right.
So, you know,
I agree.
The brave little boy.
Now, wait a minute. Doesn't he have a press conference, supposedly allegedly open press conference coming up in a couple of days?
Supposed to have another debate too. But
so that means that the questions won't be delivered to all the reporters in advance beforehand,
like they did.
That's going to be interesting.
To the top. Well,
now,
you know,
that will be fun.
As a little history geek, and I'm drawn to the Kennedys. That's exactly how Jack Kennedy ran press conferences. His press secretary they called it salting, like as in salting food. And there were people in the men, because it was all white men, who were huge Kennedy fans. And they would, prior to the press conference beginning, they would hand out questions to members of the press corps that Jack had a funny answer to or a clever answer to, and he knew who to call. They have a chart up there and you know, apparently every president has the chart where the member, and they all put their hands up, Mr. President, and Jack knew who to call on because he knew the question in advance
and he knew the punchline,
and he had no. I mean, if you think about it. And that's how the press loved Jack Kennedy, but hated Nixon.
Yeah, Nixon, man, that was interesting because he was so smart and intelligent, you know, and what a brain, but he just couldn't handle the media thing.
He hated them, and they hated him.
Yep, absolutely.
And this whole idea now of the establishment, which is now both Democrats and Republicans are using that term. Richard Nixon flew face first into the establishment.
Yeah.
And they wanted nothing to do with Nixon.
Yep.
Crazy stuff.
It is, boy. It's going to get wild.
All yours.
All right. 62 and sunny. Thanks, Pete. In Denver, expecting highs in the lower 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
They want Crooked Joe out of the race. It's a shame the way they're treating him. But don't feel sorry for him. He's a very bad guy. He weaponized government. Remember that.
Former President Trump stumping in South Florida, and one of Colorado's favorite Democrats, Michael Bennet, says that former President Trump is on schedule to win in a landslide, and he wants to know that Biden can vigorously campaign against him. And his voters here in the Rockies are scared to think about Trump on top of the mountain again. But Trump isn't going to be knocked down by the storytellers.
But on many things, not just golf. When pilots walk into the White House, he says he used to fly planes. He didn't. When truckers come in, he says he used to drive a truck. He didn't. When Jewish people are here, he always attended synagogues, he said, the Jewish people. He didn't attend a synagogue. Did he ever see a synagogue? He doesn't know what a synagogue is. When black people come, he spent his Sundays in black churches. All of it's false. All of it's fake. He's a fake.
Trump speaking to 45,000 supporters, including Marco Rubio and Byron Donalds, who are VP candidates. President Biden kicked off this week's NATO summit, as Pete and I were just talking about. He was dialed in on the teleprompter. It was a pep rally for Ukraine. And hey, why not? He does a lot of business there.
In Europe, Putin's war of aggression against Ukraine continues, and Putin wants nothing less than Ukraine's total subjugation, to end Ukraine's democracy, destroy Ukraine's culture, and to wipe Ukraine off the map. And we know Putin won't stop at Ukraine, but make no mistake, Ukraine can and will stop Putin.
I don't think so. What do you think, Pete?
It's warmongering.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, geez.
It's warmongering.
Really, man.
It's frightening to hear that speech.
It is it is frightening, no doubt. Biden will also hold his first round of talks with the new British Prime Minister today. Tuesday, both House and Senate Democrats met behind closed doors to discuss Biden's future. Dr. Tom Pitts on NBC News. Look at all the journalism going on in the mainstream media. What gives?
You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
So could have most of us like 4 years ago. Albertsons about to sell 89 Safeway stores in Colorado. That's as long as a planned merger with Kroger is approved. Stores up and down the Front Range will be sold to CNS wholesale grocers. A pending lawsuit is currently holding it up. The company is out of New Hampshire, so live free or die without plastic bags here in Colorado. All right, the suspected shooter at the Yellowstone National Park allegedly threatened violence on a larger scale. Lucas Fussner had plans to carry out a mass shooting during Independence Day events. He was holding a woman against her will when park rangers found him with a gun last Thursday and killed him in a shootout. Fed Chair Jerome Powell told a Senate committee Tuesday that he wants to see more evidence inflation is cooling before cutting interest rates, but added that waiting too long could hurt the economy and the labor market. The Reds beat the Rockies 12-6, back at it today. First pitch, 5:10, 59 in Parker, 60 in Greenwood Village, and 62 in Denver. It's 7:10 day. Yes, July 10th. Pete continues all week in for Jeff and Bill. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Sunny to partly sunny, and it's going to get hotter and hotter in the coming days. Temperatures in the low 90s. Lows tonight near 60. 90s Thursday. Upper 90s to lower 100s Friday through Sunday. Only a slight chance of isolated thunderstorms during that stretch. Nights in the 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Thanks, fellas. Good morning. It's a Wednesday, July the 10th, 2024. It is 7:10 day. Thank you for being here. Weather, hot, hot, hot. Peter Boyles on the air everywhere. And without further ado, welcome back to the radio show. He has become quite a friend, and his efforts to straighten up the Republican Party, I don't know, it's to kind of deaf ears, but they continue to do what they do. The talented Dick Wadhams. Richard, good morning. Thanks for coming back up on the air.
Good morning, Pete. Nice to hear you on the radio in the morning.
Well, thank you, sir. I got to ask you, I know you follow all of this, and this was my sort of umbrella question for the morning. Does Joe Biden look to you like a guy who's leaving the job? Seriously.
Well, he looks like a guy who's digging in, and frankly, the congressional Democrats have folded, and they seem to be rallying everybody but Senator Bennett, who gave a very powerful interview yesterday on CNN.
I saw it,
but he's probably going to survive. And I'll tell you what, I agree with Bennett and James Carville and others. This is going to be a Trump landslide if Biden does not get out of this race.
What holds them? I mean, you've been inside in politics for quite a while, and I go back to Richard Nixon, and in the end, as we now know from so many great books that have been written, that it is only when the power of the Republican Party goes literally to the Oval Office and says, "Dick, it's time." His wife wasn't going to get him out. His girls weren't going to get him out. He wasn't going to get out. Kissinger wasn't going to get him out. And it took that moment. And you think, I mean, the people seems like, well, I'll let it go. But do you think that moment's coming?
The only person that really matters when it really gets down to it, Pete, regardless of what I said about the congressional Democrats, is Jill Biden. I think Jill, and throw in Biden's brother and his daughter, and then the wonderful Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
And I think they are all part of the cabal to keep him in the race, because they can't imagine giving up the White House. They've got a pretty cushy lifestyle right now. I think that until Jill Biden is persuaded that this is the right thing to do, it ain't going to happen.
You know, this idea that, of course, I want to believe, but we know it isn't true, for the good of the country. And so many times in my lifetime, things that were done by presidents and vice presidents and governors have not been for the good of the state and the good of the country. Nevertheless, for their own self-gain or whatever it is, they do it. And you would think that somebody would come in there and go, "Look, Mr. President." And I watched that NATO speech last night, and we were talking with Blake about it. He was that was a campaign speech to show you that he was hale and hearty.
Yes. Yeah. And, Pete, I got to tell you, I think it's reprehensible that Jill Biden thinks so little of her husband and her political party and her nation, that she is not doing the right thing on this. She knows that he is not capable of being president, and even between now and the election, much less a 4-year term after that, if he somehow won. I agree. It's just, and I think we all have gone through times with our parents and family members where we've had to make tough decisions, and she's just burying her head in the sand.
I read an interesting critique last night on Dr. Jill and the aftermath of the alleged debate. And then he went to, where did he go? The Waffle House, or he went to some pancake joint. And this critique was, wait a minute, you just got done telling me this man had a bad cold. What the hell is wrong with you taking him into all the patrons in wherever they went, some sort of a waffle place? And they said, what a tremendous insight to Jill Biden as either telling lies, which is what I think she's doing, or having no regard for the patrons, taking her, quote, sick husband in the place. I mean, Dick, God, that just made so much sense to me. What a criticism.
Oh, I totally agree. In fact, they kind of backed off a little bit on the cold thing. But the other thing, Pete, is this whole notion that he's going to go to bed by 8 o'clock every night.
Please.
And I can't remember who brought this up, but remember the Hillary Clinton ad, who's going to answer the phone at 3 a.m.?
That's right.
And I think that's a really good point. I mean, what is Jill going to be answering the phone at 3 a.m. and talking to the Joint Chiefs of Staff about the Russian invasion of Poland or something? I mean, we can't wake Joe up till 9.
No, that's right. Yeah, Joe's not going to come around. And then there's one more thing, and we'll move to the repubs here, but and I've been reading about it, and it's called sundowning. And as you and I go gently into that good night, but he wakes up in the best shape that he's going to be in all day, if this is true, is when he first wakes up, and then he slips further and further and further down the pole. Well, you can't, one of the things that struck me after that debate, so much for me, come on. But he's in charge of things that are going to happen to my grandson. That guy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that guy.
Yeah. It's reprehensible that the family is not doing the right thing for their husband and father, and for the nation, frankly. Yeah.
Would you let that guy drive the school bus that your grandkid rode on? No. All right. Dick Wadhams is here. Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. So now this is so bizarre. As the headline in Westward says, chaos continues in effort to remove Colorado GOP chair Dave Williams. I know that the two of you are close. So what the hell are we watching?
We're watching the absolute meltdown and decline of the Colorado Republican Party under this corrupt regime led by Dave Williams that's in charge of it right now, Pete. And this is the latest example of it. I mean, the bylaws are perfectly clear. If 25% of the members submit a petition to call for a meeting to remove the state chairman, the state party within 10 days needs to set a meeting date in 30 days. Well, now they're playing games and they're going to convene a meeting. Dave Williams and his acolytes are going to convene a meeting, but then immediately gavel it into recess until August 31st. And it's just playing games with the bylaws. And it's just, I think there's a growing number of people within the state central committee, about 400 people total in that committee, who are just tired of this and who want to get him out of there. But the state party, they probably will just implement what they're saying. They're just going to ignore this.
Again, we talked about the Biden family being self-serving. At this point, I mean, I see a lot of comparisons. Chairman Williams, we should say Chairman Williams. This is all very self-serving. And what is he? They call it playing for time. Is he playing for time to hope? And Kelly Michaels and I talked about this morning. That if and when Donald Trump wins, is Williams banking on some minor functionary position in the Trump administration? And what do you do with that?
No doubt. And to that question, Pete, I think that if Trump wins this election, they hand out a lot of jobs. Both there are some federal appointments here in Colorado, and then thousands of them in Washington. And I'm sure that's what I would imagine that's what he's banking on. But I got to tell you, his star has probably been tarnished a little bit. Trump doesn't like people he endorses to lose, and he went down in flames in that primary against Jeff Crank. And so while I don't know that Trump has abandoned him, Trump probably was thinking, well, my endorsed candidate got humiliated. He doesn't like that.
I also believe, and there's a line through history that's always violated. It's entitled, "Don't buy trouble." And of course, nation state after nation state goes and buys trouble, but don't go buy trouble. So that I don't know, if there is a new Trump administration and people look at what Williams did, particularly during Gay Pride, and somebody's going to go into Trump and say, look, why are you doing this? Why are you bringing this joker in? You're going to have enough problems as is. Why buy trouble? Why bring Dave Williams into your administration? That's my guess.
I think that could happen. And The New York Post has a big story today that I actually sent to you, Pete. I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I just
Melania Trump.
Yeah.
Melania Trump and Kellyanne Conway had a fundraiser yesterday at Trump Tower for the Log Cabin Republicans.
No, the gay Republicans. I saw that. Yes.
Yeah, gay Republicans. And I wonder if Williams is going to lead a rally against Melania Trump.
Yeah. No, and Dick Wadhams is here. We're talking about the Republican Party in Colorado as always. I really used to think of this young man as a burner. This is a guy that, we would have lunch together and talk, and I watched him slip into this madness that surrounds this party, and now their excuse is, well, he didn't have enough money. This is a guy who has Donald Trump's cell phone number. He has Mike Lindell. He has all of these really wealthy, which I know this is a clown show, but why didn't somebody get? And by the way, when you're beaten that bad and all you want to do is blame it on money, then that's just your out card. That's your excuse. You got beat, and everybody you propped up got beat too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he lost every primary. The state party lost every primary where they endorsed, except for the Boebert race in the 4th CD. But she had extraordinary advantages as an incumbent and fundraising and name ID.
What's this story I'm seeing on sort of the dark web about this group that sued her? Have you seen this Lauren Boebert story?
No, I haven't seen that.
Well,
I haven't seen that.
It's like, I don't want to open the door, but it's about her behavior, and these people said things about her behavior, what she had done in the past, and then something happened, and then they sued her and they settled, and it's as much as I can get out of it. But it's
wow.
Yeah, no, it is what again, Colorado politics. When I used to read, like, I always thought Louisiana politics were my favorites to read, back to the Long family. No, I did. I was drawn to the Long family, and I kind of grew up in a quasi corrupt state. Illinois, under the, you go back to the dailies, and California, the Dancing Bear, and Texas politics are, the stuff that Johnson went through. But I'm starting to think, Dick, that it's been a long time since anything as nuts as this. And it just is flat crazy.
It is. And it just continues to get worse. It really does. You mentioned Louisiana politics. Something like 4 consecutive governors went to prison.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Longs. There'd be a new book drop on Huey Long or something. I'd go get the guy on the show, and there was Uncle Earl, and Huey, Speedy. Remember Speedy Long, Mac Long? I mean, that was their, and then, the next governor, and then the mayor of New Orleans, and you just can't get any better than that. You just can't. And the governor was one. Remember when the governor came out of prison, and he's walking down the stairs or up the stairs, and he's with 2 women, and the caption is with his daughter and with his wife. And it turned out that the woman that everybody thought was his wife was his daughter. The one that everybody thought was his daughter was his wife. And those guys, the crook, he was the best. Oh, yeah. How good were those guys? They were that good. And, wow.
Well, we've got our own little version here in Colorado, right now.
Indeed we do. Indeed we do. I'll just leave you with this. This is from the Great Wall. We always thought the worst thing that happened in Colorado was Neil Bush. Touche. Well said.
Yep.
We were talking about Uncle Neil yesterday. There was a guy.
Yeah.
My ex-wife always had the greatest line. Remember his wife, Sharon, the lovely Sharon Bush?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Kathleen used to say she was always looking for the place in Neil Bush's back where Sharon Bush put her hand to make his jaw work. It was one of her better lines. All right, sir. Well, we're going back to open lines, and 303-696-1971. Again, does this guy look like he's leaving? I mean, I've watched that.
I don't think so. I think unless Joe Biden comes to her senses and then maneuvers them out, he's going to be there. And it's going to be a Trump landslide. Senator Bennett is dead right.
Yes,
the Democrats are going to get killed.
And right? And they do what they do. Uncle Dick, we'll talk over the weekend. Thanks, always, for your time. We're in times to turn around. 303-696-1971. Good morning. It's a Wednesday, 10th morning of July. Hot, hot, hot. When you hot, you hot. 93, the high 96. Look at this, 101. So we know it's hot time. I wrote a bunch of questions, especially after that Donnybrook that broke out here yesterday morning with all of this nonsense and the elections and stuff. I just keep that to yourself. It's okay. You know where Donnybrook comes from? It's a place in Ireland. It was a fair that all the Irish clans would go to the fair, and they'd be great fights. And they did. And it was called, that's why they called them a Donnybrook, but there actually is a place called Donnybrook. So does Joe Biden look like he's leaving? Michael Bennett says that he doesn't believe Biden can win the 2024. George step on all of us, and he got clipped, and it's a real lesson. He can't make it 4 more years. Then he got jumped on by ABC. Who's running the country? That was I wrote this other one. Who owns the country? Ooh. 303-696-1971. Lines are wide open. I'm Peter Boyles. It's a Wednesday morning, 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. The cleanup continues in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, with a race to restore power as temperatures reach dangerous levels. Hundreds of thousands of customers are still without electricity in Texas as temperatures hit 105 degrees. Some progress has been made, but officials are warning that the extent of the damage to the power infrastructure might take days or even weeks to fix in the worst affected areas. Opening arguments are expected today in Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial. The Hollywood actor was holding a prop gun that discharged, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins during a rehearsal on the movie set Rust in 2021. He's pleaded not guilty. Tony Waterman has more.
Baldwin's lawyers will argue that he's being punished for others' mistakes, mainly the movie's armorer, who claims to have unknowingly loaded a live bullet in the prop gun. They also say that that firearm, the most crucial piece of evidence, was destroyed during FBI forensic testing. Now, prosecutors are expected to argue that Baldwin was acting carelessly while on set. The trial is expected to last about 2 weeks, and if convicted, Baldwin faces up to 18 months in prison.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Morning, everybody. The 10th morning of July, 2024, Wednesday, 93 the high. I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellas. They're back next Monday, 303-696-1971 with two lines open. We go to Brian. Hey, Brian, thanks. Good morning, and thanks for calling.
Hey, Pete. First, I just want to be a little critical of Dick what not to do Wadhams, and only because I'm not a big fan of Dave Williams at all. I think what he did about the pride stuff was not good for the party. But where was Dick the past 10 years being critical of the GOP when we were getting slaughtered in elections? I didn't hear crickets from him.
I always think
he wasn't critical of the KBB.
I always think when people were critic to that, you didn't do it, so you did it. Come on, move on, Brian. Move on.
All of a sudden now the GOP is decimated.
Well,
it's been decimated.
Brian, stop. What you're doing is you're blaming somebody for not doing something, and they didn't do it. So let's go after them for not doing it. Oh, come on. Now move to your topic.
I'll move on.
Right.
My topic is Biden. And here's my question: what happens if something happens to him before the election, and he passes away?
Yeah, sure.
Because it could happen. I had a close friend that had Parkinson's, and my grandma died from Alzheimer's. He's got the hallmarks of everything I saw for the few years that they were before they passed on.
Agreed.
So if he does, and Kamala becomes the president, does she automatically get the nomination, or what's the process there?
The Constitution, I believe, would suggest that if something were to happen to Joe, she steps in. But this isn't what they're talking about. I was deep reading last night. They're talking about something called an open convention. These are the naysayers. The other locksteppers, if that's the right term, Joe goes, Joe gets the rubber stamp, Joe campaigns, Joe's Joe, and Joe beats Trump. That's their prediction. On the other hand, now that the number is growing, do what you want to do with Michael Bennet, but when Michael Bennet, he doesn't tell Biden to step down, but he says he doesn't believe Biden can win. Well, that's about halfway there. And the more of their own party people. But again, it gets into this moment that I talked to Dick about, and I'll aim it back to you. Does Biden look to you like a guy that's leaving that job?
No. I think he's holding on. Yes. And like you said, what his family is doing is a disgrace. Yeah. But I don't think he's going to lose. And eventually the Democrats are smart enough to remove him by any means necessary.
And that makes that convention, the pending convention, albeit in Chicago, that makes that pending convention perhaps one of the, if not the most interesting political convention certainly since Jack Kennedy takes it in L.A., where there was actual floor fights and, people switching votes. Because now when they show to the conventions, all the primaries have taken place, everything's taken place, and it's just a question of getting the papal blessing. Now, this could be a really amazing convention to watch.
It's going to be fun to watch. But if Kamala does become president in the interim, and she has to pick a VP, obviously, the day she takes office or shortly after. Does she automatically get the nomination, or do we still have an open convention?
No, if something happens like you say, where the Constitution kicks in, like when Jack Kennedy dies or anything like that,
true.
Then it's designed. It's an instrument. It's designed to make it work. But what these guys are talking about now. And again, I'll go back to Lyndon Johnson, when Johnson steps down. And although he had won the New Hampshire primary, Gene McCarthy had really cut in on him. And that was the green light to Bobby Kennedy. We've been over this many, many times. So by the time they get back to Chicago in 1968, the so-called Days of Rage, it is Hubert Humphreys. Who is he? He's Lyndon Johnson's vice president. This is so complex, but it all predicates, I believe, on what Biden does. And so I'm watching this guy last night, and I'm thinking, does he look like he's going to leave this job? Or is he bluffing? Do you think he's bluffing, Brian? And for what reason would he bluff?
Biden's not making any decisions for himself. So I'm trying to figure out what the people but pulling the strings for him are doing.
But see,
and the life of me, I can't figure it out, Pete, because
that's an assumption as well. But it's a good one. But the things I wrote down for myself, because I thought, indeed, who is actually running the country? We've talked many times about Edith Wilson and Colonel House. Who's running the United States of America as we speak?
His chief of staff and some people, I think many members of the Obama administration are running it, are running the show.
And when he goes off to it's going to NATO. Come on, somebody should have said, there's so much at stake here. And to me, again, I come back to that now overused line. What really is the most chilling thing about Joe Biden to me is my grandson's future. I'm an old man. I've run my race. Whatever happens to me happens to me. But what happens to that kid? And what happens to everybody else's kids and grandkids? And that's the real premier question. This guy really has to get out of the way. But Brian, I don't see it.
And Pete, it's the Democrat Party, though. It's not Joe Biden. The Democrat Party is the biggest threat to your grandchildren. I can tell you that right now.
All things aside, we're talking about the POTUS. We're talking about whoever is at the top of the poll. And this guy, for the life of me, and again, maybe this will be a groundswell by the time I'm back here tomorrow morning, maybe 2 or 3 more prominent Democrats will step up and say, look, you got to go. And that's what eventually happened to Nixon. But now, Brian, I'm at a loss. I really am, because
Jill's the final decision maker in this thing. Yeah. I think because she's the only one I think that could talk Joe out of it. But again, I really don't think Joe knows a lot. I think he knows he's president, but I don't think he knows what's going on. He probably thinks he still has his faculties, because that's what happens with people that have those sort of issues. They think they're on point, and they're not.
No, everything you say is true, because you always want to believe that you're like, I have a friend that used to play pro ball. He was pretty good. He played big league baseball. He was a pitcher. And we had this conversation, and we ride together, and we're best friends. And he said, I want to believe I could still throw in the majors. He said, he just shook his head. He said, my release is gone. He went over all these things that, great pitchers know. And I feel the same thing. This is the first time in a long, long time I've done actually a 6-day work week. And I feel good about it, but could I keep it up? Could I keep doing it? And one of the things that you owe the company, you owe the audience, and particularly you owe yourself, is can you do a good job? And I'm watching this guy right now and rereading all the Nixon stuff and all the stuff that came with it. Nixon's drunk half the time in the end. He's out of it. His wife is locked in her room. It's just in turmoil. And yet Nixon is not going to let loose the reins. Brian, good call. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks. 303-696-1971. Here's one. It says, Hunter is running the show, cocaine and champagne for the White House staff. All right. 303-696-1971. So who's running America? Who owns America? That's another great question, too. And I just watched this. Does Biden look to you, if you saw his NATO speech last night, or I saw it last night, does that guy look to you like he's quitting the job? Because he doesn't. He doesn't look like he's quitting the job. 303, what will it take? 303-696-1971. And watching this guy, what do you think it will take, or what do you think November looks like? Prediction, 710 KNUS. 7:50, 10 before hour, the Blake Olson Report straight ahead. It's a Wednesday morning on 710 KNUS. We'll go to the calls. Hey, Jesse, thank you. Brother, you're on the show.
P, you're making it a good week for everyone. Thanks.
Oh, you're kind. Thank you. Not everyone. Not everyone.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, so I had a comment. The only reason why, Jill Biden doesn't want her husband, Joe Biden, to quit is because she wants him to go as a hero, die in office.
Coming back on the shields. And get a state funeral and become Jackie Kennedy and be the widow. That's
right. Yeah, she'll get
just
more.
That's really good. That's really good stuff. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Please.
She'll get more sentimental and and she'll get the benefits and she'll just want that's to come her and her son want him to go. Keep going, even though that he might say, I'm tired of this and I'm tired of that, because he's a guy that likes to cuss and stuff, except the cameras never show it. But his family is just pushing him on so he can go away as a hero, and then that way they can keep talking good about him forever.
Jesse, that's very wise. On the other hand, with the Nixons, as a geek reader of all those Nixon books, Thelma Ryan, had literally locked herself away, and she was drinking. Nixon's drinking. The one by one, the Watergate burglars and also the minions inside of the administration, John Mitchell, Haldeman, Jeb Stuart Magruder, Eagle Crow, John Dean, the rat, you get on a list of people. And it gets closer and closer. What was John Dean's great line? There's a cancer on the presidency. And it got closer and closer and closer to Nixon. And that may or may not happen to Trump. It may or may not happen to Trump. Just get closer, all these different things that happen. In the meantime, are these people being the anti-Nixon people by saying he's, and again, much like Nixon, but if it was up to Pat Nixon, Richard Nixon would have resigned, but he doesn't do it, and he waits. But he waits for the power. When the power says go, he goes. Your call is really well taken. That's
one more thing, Pete. Sure. I hope, let me see, that if Joe Biden doesn't take up Donald Trump on the golf, because if anything were to happen to him once he hits that stroke, then, they're going to blame Trump forever. And they're going to say he didn't want it, but you pushed him and forced him and whatnot. Democrats are good for blaming everyone for everything.
Well, everybody blames everybody. I mean, it isn't one of those moments or cases or places. What I've witnessed as a reader and a watcher all these years, everybody blames the other guy. And it's like, it's the monkeys see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil about themselves, but blame the other guy. And that's okay too. But reality, now what did Harry Truman say? The buck stops here. There has to be places and the buck stops at Joe Biden's desk. It's just the truth. And
I hope the buck stops while it still has value, not when it's devalued anymore.
Yeah, no, everything you say is a very good call. I appreciate it, Jess. Well thought out, man. Well thought out. So we continue. Again, does this guy look to you like he's leaving? And I was convinced, and Blake's coming up, and Blake had we were betting the overs and unders on Joe, and I think we had Friday. Friday was going to be the drop dead date. And we were talking about Blake's going back to the window. Michael Bennett says he doesn't think Biden can win, and I love that step on all of us moment where he said, "You guys said you can't serve 4 more years, and you can't make it." And then ABC snapped him like a whip. And then who was running the country? If all of this is what it is, but better yet, who owns America? And what I have loved reading and watching and listening to is now the term the elite. And the Republican Party blames the elites. the Democrats now blame the elites for Joe Biden's ills. It's the elites. Now, there was a time the Republican Party would have not dared say the elites. Richard Nixon fought what he called, or what was called, the establishment, the Eastern establishment that really hated Nixon, and Nixon, of course, in turn, hated them. But let's talk about that as well. Who runs this country? Who actually runs this country? We got a minute till we do have Blake come in and be with us, but who actually runs this country? And I love the terms that both Republicans and Democrats use. And they come back with this cabal, this elite, the swamp. You give it whatever jacket you want to give it. C. Wright Mills, the great political writer who himself a motorcyclist, albeit a communist, Mills wrote a book entitled The Power Elite. And I think he was at Columbia. And Mills said, this is who runs this country. They are the power elite. It's Wednesday, the 10th morning of July. It's 7:10 on 710. The Blake Olson Report, and we'll come back and open lines. Your turn. Lines are open. Stay right here. Good morning, everyone. Peter Boyles for the boys. They're off until next Monday. It's a Wednesday morning, but it's the 10th day of the 7th month. So it is 710 day. I like that. This is 710 KNUS. It's hot, 93 the high today, 96, 101, 100 degrees. It is hot, hot, hot. 710 KNUS Women Open Line segment. It is time for the Olsen Report. I have become this huge fan. I'm usually, headed to the gym early in the morning, and I catch the top of the hour shows. And when you first came on, as part of anything, dude.
What the hell is he doing?
No, you know what? I said, this guy's, one off. He's not,
Oh, yeah,
no,
I'm definitely one.
No, seriously. And like I said, and like warts, you've grown on me, but I am like this fan.
At least you didn't say something else.
No, of course I could, but you have really, made this into this really great segment. I've loved being here this week, just being with you and sitting and talking. No, you're the man. And
I love it. I love it. Listen to you for years, and it's just it's an honor to be on with you.
You're kind, but I wanted to make a point, because you and I were talking in the first couple hours, and actually yesterday as well, about this whole Biden lash up. But it's important to remember, and again, you go to history for its lessons, but no president, this is why I'm looking at Joe right now, no president, Blake, has ever been defeated outright in a primary since, remember, primaries have now become the standard, if you would, of how we decide nominations. And no incumbent president has faced a truly viable primary challenge since 1980. And Ted Kennedy lost to Jimmy Carter. I remember it well. Lyndon Johnson didn't drop out. And when he got clipped, and he didn't get clipped in New Hampshire, I mentioned that early, but his presidency went to Hubert Humphrey.
Right. That was Humphrey.
Ronald Reagan lost to an attempt on Gerald Ford, but 4 years later gets it.
Right.
But again, the only one, and he's like one of my most unfavored American presidents, Woodrow Wilson. In 1920, I had to go look at this. His support collapsed after he was incapacitated by the stroke here in Pueblo, and his accomplishment, the Treaty of Versailles, and Senate didn't want it, and then all the craziness with his wife Edith. So nobody's got a lock on this.
No, they don't. I mean, have we seen anything crazier? You just mentioned 3 or
Nixon.
4.
Nixon.
Nixon. We have.
Yeah.
We really have. But okay, I was thinking of this, right? I'm always, we're all coming up with little things. Okay, what if they back off? If everyone backed off and it's Biden, he looks like he's just going to go forward, right? And now, look, I hate to see this, but literally the condition that he's in, what if he were to die naturally, quote unquote, in 3 or 4 months? Now, would everyone say that they killed him?
No, I mean, I've been saying forever, and I actually wrote about it, that when you if you vote for Joe Biden, you're really voting for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
One way or the other.
That's what it comes down to.
And if he's still, if he's still running for office and he's still on the ticket and everything, voting for him is a vote for Kamala.
Yes.
And this idea of power brokers or a power elite or, the runners, you got to believe that they're in those meetings and they're saying, look, and none of the, not even when Stephanopoulos and Michael Bennett, they all say, look, Biden can't win.
Right.
Somebody's telling
what do you think was going on in that meeting yesterday? What do you think?
Fly on the wall.
Wow. You watch those. Some of them were sprinting out of there. They went through
they weren't talking.
Jeffries went out the back door.
Yep.
This is, once again, I thought Friday something would happen, but now I'm kind of like you. I'm like, he's dug in.
Yeah. And again, going back to Nixon that I, just read so much about, that they're voting. They're going to impeach him. He's as good as gone, and he still won't let up.
Man.
And the stories, if they're true, and I suspect they are, Kissinger writes about it and other people write about it, but it takes we've been over this too many times, but it takes the powerful Republicans to go up, and they've already arranged. Gerald Ford's the vice president. Rockefeller's dead. Everything that happens, and they go to him, and Spiro Agnew's and whatever's going to happen to Spiro, he's out. And they go to Nixon, and they literally tell him, "You got to go." Man. And that's when Nixon's finally, through the fog of all of this, goes, "Okay, yeah, I'll go." But he wants all these different deals arranged for himself, and he wants to be this and he wants to be that. And some of it they apparently will give to him, and others they go, "No."
How many deals do you think they're working with Biden?
That's my question. That you took it away from
right?
me.
Hundreds, thousands.
What about Hunter?
Right.
Yeah,
to me, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
To me, for him, I think that's what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, it's not about the country first.
No,
it's about Hunter.
Well, I don't even know if it's about, because you don't know internally what kinds of, and do you think, I don't know if Dr. Jill was sitting in those meetings or not.
Man, I don't know.
And who represented Joe Biden in those meetings? And
tell you this much, I agree with Megyn Kelly. She talked about Jill in that what was it in that magazine article? I can't even remember.
It was in Vogue. It was
in Vogue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And she's sitting in the president's chair.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God! Once I saw that, man, you talk about a visual. I had no idea.
You just do not do that. And it's like there's a great moment in the movie The Godfather.
Man,
when the Godfather shot, he lives, but he was shot. And remember, in his chair, in his desk,
yes,
Sonny won't sit in it. Nobody else. No, and only in the end does Michael sit in the chair.
That's right.
When they kiss his hands, they're all gone now. Brazzini, remember, he goes down the list of they're gone now.
So we have a tough time sitting in your chair in the studio.
Right.
Hey, don't mess with me.
No, but notice you I mean, who would have the whatever it takes to go into the Oval Office?
Oh my God, she is so bold.
And
that's the problem.
And maybe they do it. When
doubt.
there's nobody home and the lights are out, and maybe the kids going, what's this like?
Right.
It's like all those pictures of GIs.
But taking a photo in Vogue.
Yeah, I have tons.
She's ridiculous.
I got tons of friends that have that picture of themselves in Saddam's throne.
Oh yeah,
former GIs,
right?
Oh
yeah, that's right.
I'll sit in the throne, but nobody does that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And
that's ridiculous.
Dr. Jill, man,
I want to hear those stories later with Dr. Jill.
Dr. Jill, yeah,
you got to tell those.
Well, there'll be some. Well, the Dr. Jill's ex-husband is the one whose name's Stevenson.
Yes,
he tells some. He's got some Dr. Jill stories.
Oh man,
yeah. So
who knew?
Dr. Jill.
It's all being exposed.
It's time
kind of
for the Olsen Report. It is all right. All right.
Thanks, Peter. 68 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the lower 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
He looks like a guy who's digging in, and frankly, the congressional Democrats have folded, and they seem to be rallying everybody but Senator Bennett.
Colorado Republican strategist Dick Wadhams on with Pete last hour, and he sees what's happening with President Biden.
It's reprehensible that Joe Biden thinks so little of her husband and her political party and her nation, that she is not doing the right thing on this. She knows that he is not capable of being president, and even between now and the election, much less a 4-year term after that, if he somehow won.
And Colorado Democratic Senator Michael Bennet on CNN Tuesday.
This is the first time in more than 20 years that a Republican president has been up in this part of the campaign. Donald Trump is on track, I think, to win this election and maybe win it by a landslide and take with him the Senate and the House. So for me, this isn't a question about polling. It's not a question about politics. It's a moral question about the future of our country. And I think it's critically important for us to come to grips with what we face.
So then Biden kicked off this week's NATO summit. He was zeroed in on the teleprompter, and he wants to keep that industrial war complex going overseas.
The United States, nearly 24 allied partners have signed bilateral security agreements with Ukraine, and more countries will follow. Today, I'm announcing the historic donation of air defense equipment for Ukraine. The United States, Germany, the Netherlands, Romania, and Italy will provide Ukraine with the equipment for 5 additional strategic air defense systems.
Whoa.
And in the coming months, the United States and our partners intend to provide Ukraine with dozens of additional tactical air defense systems. The United States will make sure that when we export critical air defense interceptors, Ukraine goes to the front of the line.
So Biden will also hold his first round of talks with the new British Prime Minister today. The Vice President, Kamala Harris, telling big stories again on Tuesday.
That he will weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Round up peaceful protesters and throw them out of our country. And even, quote, terminate the United States Constitution.
She said that Trump will weaponize the DOJ against his political enemies. Exactly what they're doing. And then the lies continued. Just incredible. Dumb and a liar. Here's the former president in front of 45,000 voters in South Florida.
You have to give him credit for one brilliant decision, probably the smartest decision he's ever made. He picked Kamala Harris as his vice president. No, it was brilliant because it was an insurance policy, maybe the best insurance policy I've ever seen, Marco. If Joe had picked someone even halfway competent, they would have bounced him from office years ago, but they can't because she's got to be their second choice. She has no choice and no chance.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
Hey, how about Democrat James Carville? What does he think of all this? Break it down, James.
Some of these press conferences, it reminds me of a book they made me read in college called Ship of Fools. A bunch of desperate people sailing into disaster. And, you know, I just think that cowards have never been criminals in a war yet.
You gotta keep on your toes. Toes, that is.
Blake, who is that? I just walked
That's Foghorn Leghorn.
I know, but
every time you hear Carville, James Carville.
Yeah.
Some of these press conferences, it reminds me of a book they made me read.
See, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Ship of Fools.
Ship of Fools.
That's a great book. That's a great book, by the way.
I don't agree with him. I disagree with him 98% of the time, but he is great TV, man.
And he says Joe's done, right?
Yeah, that's what he says. He says. He says that he needs to go. He didn't say that he's done, but he needs to go. So he's trying to push him out.
Carpo, he was the hitman for the Clintons.
Oh yeah, man, that dude. Oh my goodness! I mean, he's great radio, great TV, but I think he's married to a conservative.
Yes, he is.
Right?
Yes,
right?
he is. Yeah, sure.
Man,
but he's not a good human being.
No,
Mary Madeline is the
Mary
old lady.
Madeline. That's right.
That's
exactly. Yeah, I've heard stories about him, man. in Louisiana. Louisiana.
We're just talking about with one. We're talking about the greatest political stories I think of all time come from Louisiana, and what those guys, Eddie Edwards, remember Eddie?
Oh yeah, I remember that dude.
Well, Eddie Edwards, and he was being challenged by, of all people, David Duke.
Oh right,
and they had bumper stickers that said "Vote for the crook."
Exactly. Instead of the KKK,
instead of the Klansman,
instead of the Klansman,
And that was that picture. That he's coming out of the joint or whatever he's coming out of, and there's two women. He's walking with two women, and it says the governor, his daughter, and his wife, and everybody thought that the woman that was identified, well, they didn't identify either one, but most people thought, well, that's his wife. No, that was his daughter.
That's awesome.
So everybody thought that was his wife. Eddie,
that is funny.
Oh man, Eddie was, but it was almost like you understood Louisiana, or you understand Cook County.
Oh, there's no doubt, man. If you know anything about that place, I mean, those you talk about characters, man.
Oh,
from up and down, north and south, east and west, west and the bayou up north. I mean, it's just it's fascinating culture, no doubt.
And I'm drawn to the Longs. We were talking about it. That's America's I got three great American political families that I love reading about: the Longs, the Kennedys, and the Bushes. And their similarities are striking.
Really?
Oh boy!
Wow.
Because you got
that's kind of frightening.
Well, no, you got to have. Well, the only one that didn't have money was, of course, was Huey.
Yep. Wow. All right, I'll let you get back to it. The Reds beat the Rockies 12-6. Back at it today again at 5:10. First pitch, 66 in North Glen, 65 in Littleton, 68 in Denver. Pete is the greatest. He continues. In for Jeff and Billy. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Sunny to partly sunny, and it's going to get hotter and hotter in the coming days. Temperatures in the low 90s. Lows tonight near 60. 90s Thursday. Upper 90s to lower 100s Friday through Sunday. Only a slight chance of isolated thunderstorms during that stretch. Nights in the 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Thank you, boys. It's a Wednesday, the July 10th edition, 2024, 710 day. Good old 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. And if you've been listening to it all morning, it's going to be hot. 93 and 96 tomorrow, 101 degrees on Friday. We have two lines open, 303-696-1971. Back into open lines this morning. And I wrote some questions down for all of us to talk about, but Premier, and again, I think it runs the show, does Biden look like he's leaving the job? And so there's some early polling data out. And again, do what you want to do with this. Polls, of course, are snapshots. They're moments in time. But Kamala Harris could narrowly beat Donald Trump in November. Well, it's early on. She would edge him out. There's all kinds of different qualifications to this stuff. But you just look at it and you ask yourself, what would happen? We were talking during the pause with Mark Anderson, myself, and Kelly Michaels. I was on the other side of the wall. What do you think those meetings were like yesterday? What do you think was taking place inside when they're talking about what they're going to do or not do with Joe Biden? And when it comes to re-election, some of those Democrats have taken these extraordinary steps that this man should step aside. Here, one of our two senators, Michael Bennet, says he doesn't believe that Biden can win 2024. Well, going back historically, it is never the case, with the exception of Woodrow Wilson, where the challenger, no incumbent president has faced a truly viable primary challenge since 1980. And then you hear this term called an open convention, that when they get to Chicago, and that's going to be a barn burner. But when they get to Chicago, and remember, Chicago in 68, the tradition of crazy, insane political conventions. And that was indeed the one that really stands out. Now they're going back. And if they go back into an open convention, which I guess is conceivable, think of that fight. And indeed, I don't know what goes on with Joe. I watched Joe last night. I suspect many of you did. And watching that guy speechify at NATO. Do you think that guy's going anywhere? What do you make of all of this? 303-696-1971. With two lines open, we go to Joe in Arvada. Joe in Arvada, you're on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete.
My boy.
Well, Michael Bennet and almost, what's his face? Your favorite doesn't know what to do. Dick Wadhams both of them have almost come around to my opinion.
Oh yeah, everybody follows you. I forget that.
Well, they should.
Yeah, I know.
For the opinion is simply this: Donald Trump is about to win the 47th presidency of the United States. And here's the thing. Who runs this country? Well, at this point, Donald J. Trump is calling the shots. Even though I know the paperwork hasn't been done, the American people are behind Donald J. Trump, and they are going to wrest power from the ship of fools that's running the government right now.
First of all, I would urge you to read that book before you use those terms. Number two, if I recall, Wadham said that Trump's going to win in a landslide if Biden doesn't get out of there. Now, the question now, and I think that's some universal thought amongst at least, I'm sure every Democrat thinks it. How many will say it? And I think that's going to be the real test. And so the more momentum that getting Joe out of there gains. But remember, Joe, they're on the clock. They're really on the clock. They have to do it. If they're going to remove, it's not funny. If they're going to remove Joe Biden, they have to do it sooner than later.
Oh no, Pete, the clock was over long ago. They're on the clock. Oh, well, I do believe that I'm sure the CIA and the FBI are, there'll be some serum given to Biden where if he doesn't die, he'll just have a little coughing session and then he can't speak at all. And then they'll have to remove him when he can't even say bupkis. They'll give him a little horn like Harpo.
Okay. But again, if they are going to move, and Donald Trump may have who knows who has the lock on anything, because one of the great things that happens in any fight, and this is why you have to fight fights, is to see the outcome. And when people look past things or look towards things or any, you got to play the game. You got to say, well, the Broncos are going to beat the Raiders. You got to play. You got to see who wins. And so it's a lifetime. November is a lifetime from now. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, it's 120 days.
That's a lifetime in politics.
Here's the thing, that what happened behind that meeting. Here, I'll give you some speculation. They're all in a fight. There's a back room behind the back room. The back room behind the back room is Kamala making deals that she's going to stay in as the nominee, maybe Witless as her vice president nominee. There's all kinds of deals being done here. And here's the thing. None of them want to see Kamala go forward, but she's the one that has to pull the plug on the Biden. And she's not going to do it.
No, that isn't, because it isn't the case. It doesn't work that way.
Yes, it does.
Okay, then you're the first.
Well, here, let me just say this. The vice president is the one that calls the cabinet together to pull the plug
on the 25th Amendment, but that isn't what this is about.
Yes, it is.
Well, okay, if we get
because Jill is not going to allow Joe to just toss in the hat.
But constitutionally, it would be Harris or any VP. But at the same time, that I don't think they can allow that to happen either. And again, I say there is a power structure, very powerful power structure. And when the checks dry up, when the money doesn't come in, those are all indicators to these guys what to do or what not to do. That's why I'm thinking what it must be like upstairs in the White House at night, what it must be like in those meetings yesterday that took place. And someday, of course, we'll know. Historians and history has a way of outing. And we know the end of Nixon now, but we didn't know it at the time. And
Pete, Joe isn't stepping down.
Well,
I don't know.
I said that.
Haven't figured that out.
Oh no, it isn't a question of what have I figured out. I've asked this question last night. This guy you're watching, does Biden look like a guy who's leaving that job?
No,
I agree
he's not stepping down.
I agree
and
with
Jill is the patting him on the back, saying, "Good, Joe.
Good boy.
Good.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, good boy.
Good boy."
But here's the thing. There is a bigger power structure right now, and that is the deep state. They are about to pull the plug on Joe Biden, but they have to do it through the insurance policy.
Well, again,
Kamala.
Well, once again, it goes back to the Wright Mills who runs the country. All right, Joe, I think we both had enough. 303-696-1971. So, who is running the country? And I listened to this drumbeat, principally on talk radio, but now both Republican and Democratic operatives say these things. They use the term the elites. And in the Democrat Party right now, Joe's defenders are talking about media elites. They talk about elites and power elites. The Republicans never did until Donald Trump, when this notion of a deep state, there's always been an establishment, that's not even argued with. But as I mentioned prior to the break, and I first really learned how to critically read, I'm in first part of my 20s, and I had a wonderful mentor who taught me how to become not how to read, but how to become a critical reader. And I read, and I was handed a book entitled The Power Elite. And it was written by a political theorist, political writer, chronicle, and somewhat of a historian. And his name was just the letter C, then period. Middle name was Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, and his last name was Mills. C. Wright Mills's book. And it's a classic. And it's entitled The Power Elite, knowing that Mills is a Marxist. But he writes about, when you really apply it and you think about it, and you hear it all the time without getting, the same things that were said by the Marxist, then was picked up by the Birch Society, and now I hear it on talk radio from people who claim to be Republicans, and I'm fascinated by it. So what Mills said is, in essence, if you control 51% of anything, it's yours. That you and I can be in business together. And you got 49%, I got 51%. Whose company is it? Well, it's mine. And you can go along for the ride, but they just knocked that Sumner Redstone out of the box. They come up, and money changes hands, and there's internal struggles. But if you control 51% of anything, you own it. And so Mills began to look at what percentage of people in terms of the population control, by and large, corporate America. And one of the raps is the media. Very small amount of people own and operate the media. It's just true. It's like Hollywood. So that comes up with the power elite. And so when you see this and you hear the elites and people talk about the elites, are they using Mills's model? Are they using the Birch Society model or not? Because they're meeting. It's no longer the line where left to right. It's a circle. It touches. It's a circle. We need to pause here, boss, and then come back. All right. We have one line open, 303-696-1971. A lot of things to read, but we'll take the break. Who is in charge? Large and in charge. 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. With continuing scrutiny of the president's mental capacity, the White House has been forced to deny media reports that President Biden was being treated for Parkinson's disease. From New York, Haley Bianco reports.
Earlier this week, the New York Times reported that visitor logs showed a doctor specializing in Parkinson's visited the White House at least 8 times from August through March. The White House responded to this claim by saying that President Biden is not being treated for Parkinson's disease and has not seen a neurologist outside of his annual physicals. Concerns that Biden might be suffering from an undisclosed illness have risen since he stumbled, appeared frail, and lost his train of thought several times at the June 27th debate against Donald Trump. A Reuters review of White House visitor logs showed that Dr. Kevin Cannard, a neurologist and movement disorder specialist from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, visited the White House 8 times from August through March. The White House says those visits were part of his neurological clinics aimed at supporting thousands of active duty military members.
What's believed to be the earliest photo taken of a First Lady has been bought by the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery. The recently discovered image of Dolly Madison, wife of 4th President James Madison, is believed to date back to 1846. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Wednesday morning, everyone. There we are, July 10th, 2012. I'm Peter Boyles. Lots to read here. Go really quickly to this one. Peter, when the blue machine decides it wants Joe to go away, neither he nor Dr. Jill will have a say. It rhymes. We go to Mike. Mike, you're on a radio show. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
Yeah, Peter, I want you to know I am proud of my service as the first black female vice president to the first black president. I'm proud of my service.
Well, she's not African.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, she's not.
That's Joe Biden.
Yeah, she's not African American. And Joe, what did Joe say? He was the first. Who knows what Joe says? So
that's what he said.
Yeah, I know he did. That's what I'm saying. Who knows what Joe says? So walk me into this, or walk me out of it. How does this come to an end?
Well, God, I don't know, honestly. You asked who's in control. Karen Pierre, what as Brandy calls her, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yep.
It's much easier to say. She said in a question yesterday at the press conference, he has teams. Biden has teams. So when nuclear war breaks out, he has teams. Is that nice to know?
But listen, the Pentagon has contingency plans to invade Canada. They plan these things out. And it goes without saying that they have protocols, and this is ongoing, and it's nothing that's new. And so the idea of having a team that comes in and kicks in, that's been age old. That's Ronald Reagan. It's Lyndon Johnson. It's Dwight Eisenhower. It's so when I saw that and I went, well, somebody's going to make a big deal out of that on talk radio, but it isn't a big deal.
Well,
it's not a big deal.
Thank you. I did. No,
it's not
but I'm thinking, well, he's got teams for everything.
Of course they do.
You want to know who's in charge? He sure the hell ain't.
Well,
and the proverbial 3 a.m. phone call.
Say that again.
The proverbial 3 a.m. phone call.
Yeah.
Who's up to that?
Well, there you are.
If Hillary isn't or wasn't, or I don't remember who.
Well, she aimed at Donald Trump. That was aimed at Trump ad. Yeah.
And these brain diseases, Biden has. I use the plural form because, truthfully, I'm reading descriptions from neurosurgeons. One says he has Parkinson's because of the walk, and another one says because of the shouts of anger outburst, he has Alzheimer's. I'm wondering if you can have more than one.
I think you can. There's any numbers of combinations apparently, and geez, I have no right nor reason nor education to do this, but what I read is that the doctors who treat people like the president, the one guy said, I could have spotted this, I could have diagnosed him across the mall. I think that's pretty true. And we now know toward the end of his 8 years, Ronald Reagan had begun to slip. They came to terms with it. And, Ronald Reagan in my lifetime is, he will rank in the top 2 or 3 presidents of my life. But in the end, Ronald Reagan was slipping. And we were talking about Nancy Reagan yesterday. I was in a meeting. We're talking about Nancy Reagan yesterday. She was so protective of Ronnie, as she called him Ronnie. And there was a great moment where after the Bushes Barbara Bush says that we are going to be a kinder and gentler administration, to which
I rolled my eyes.
Nancy Reagan said, kinder and gentler than who? Because they didn't get along. There was no getting along. That goes back to attempting to usurp. So let me bring you. Come full circle. Does this have a Nixonian end? Does this have a Joe stays in the game? I'm stumped. I really am.
I think it's all in the party mechanism. Maybe you could ask Wadhams, or maybe you have. I might have missed it more, but this isn't. The party is not the parties are not the same as in 1968. Hopefully the mayhem maybe, but the parties are not. So it doesn't sound like they can. He has to willfully leave and turn his delegates over to whomever.
But will he? And what could make that happen? And does this? And again, now just drop the needle on the record. But does that guy last night look to you like a guy who's leaving that office or leaving that job? Unless he could be running a bluff, and this could be like playing, Texas Hold'em. He could be running a bluff. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think so. I think his hate for Trump is so great that he's gonna be in it.
Oh, they
hate, very bitter end.
They hate each other. I made the bet they would not shake hands. Oh no, they're going to be gentlemen. When that debate happened, there's no handshaking. They didn't come.
They could have. Yeah, they could have.
not on your life. Not on your life. That wasn't going to.
If I was the Republicans, I would start collecting this last 4 years of these verbal flubs. I mean, you thought Bush's malapropisms were bad.
Yeah. Oh, listen, if it gets to this, and the make break is Labor Day, and being around the media business for probably too many years, the money flows in at Labor Day. That's when the real politicking begins. Now, it's already begun, and we're not even past the conventions. But if we get to it, who knows what it's going to look like? But you come out of these two conventions and past Labor Day, can you imagine the kinds of commercials, the brutality, the kinds of things that are going to be said, played, put up on billboards? Can you imagine that, Mike?
Oh man, it's going to make Johnson's little girl
plucking the flowers.
Leaves off.
Was it sunflowers? Yeah, it was sunflowers.
Yeah, that's gonna pale in comparison.
And that I don't know if it took that to beat Barry Goldwater, but people who study political advertising, boy, that was and the people that never saw it was 1964, Lyndon Johnson and Barry Goldwater. And Barry Goldwater, I had a chance to speak. It was a phone speak with Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater was an incredible interview. And Barry Goldwater said, he said, and I can't do his voice, but he said, they said if I was going to win, we would have American boys would be in Vietnam. There'd be riots in the streets. He went down a list of things. He said, I lost. In other words, like everything that he said he would not do, that he was blamed to do, happened, but he had lost the election and Johnson had won. But they had made this ad. It's a black and white, and it's a little girl.
It's on,
it's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, you can see it. And she's plucking and she's singing a little girl's song. In the background, you see the mushroom go. Whoa. Yeah. Was that beauty? I mean, Michael, that was beauty. And yeah. And they actually,
that was brutal.
Yeah, they turned Barry Goldwater into somebody that he really wasn't.
That may be the first time the Democrats pulled that trick. I mean, they do it all the time now, Oh, Trump's a tyrant. He's gonna use the courts and lawfare to against his opponent. Excuse me.
Yeah. But that's the point of being able to, if you would, filter or weigh your way through craziness and try to come to some moment or some place where you go, well, here's the truth. And believe me when I tell you, it's not in the media. And that includes talk radio. That includes so many other things, but blogs and chat rooms and everything. I mean, it just isn't there. So where do you find it? That was our topic on Monday. How do you get to what you need to know? And believe me, Spike Lee had that great line, do the right thing. I don't think Joe can I don't know if Joe can do the right thing or can even wither the criticism in private from Democrats in Congress who are worried that he'll drag down the 2024. That's really what they're worried about, what's called down ballot stuff. Not only at the top, my God, the return of Donald Trump, Napoleon comes off the island. I mean, this is like big stuff. No, it is. I mean, I thought about it last night. It's like
you're right.
Napoleon came out of exile.
He's back.
And you ever read that French newspaper thing where it's a great study where they're chronicling Napoleon leaving, and they begin with the monster. They call him the monster. And as he gets closer to Paris, the headlines change. And hero of thousands arrives. But he's the monster, and indeed he was. But it's Napoleon leaving the island. Yeah.
I did not know that. Well, I mean, half the media is split right now. Half of them are, for and half are against.
And I don't know. I'm a guy that kind of looks at it from having been inside of it in the belly of the beast for probably too many years. But I tell you what, Mike, I've said this before. If you had any idea who these people really are, you would not believe a thing you saw, read, or listened to. You just go, no, it's cool. It's okay. I'll be on my own.
Yeah.
Right,
I just stopped watching TV. TV news 20 years ago, and I haven't missed it since.
But
I just scour the internet. I scour the internet for anything and everything.
And again, I mean, and I call it Dr. Google. How many times when you think you're sick and you Google it? No, do you do it?
Right.
Do you find
I have.
How many times? It
actually worked.
Not only that, how many times you thought you're going to die and you Google it? Oh God, this is it. You're like, no, I do.
Yeah.
Chronically, like, oh, really? What? And I'm lucky I got these great doctors I can go to, and they're ones. Would you lay off of that stuff? But oh God. I had a cold that I just couldn't get away from, and I got it skiing on I modestly said on New Year's Day, and I got sick, and I was sick for months. And I thought for sure I had a number of different things. That
low voice is a sign of Parkinson's, so be careful.
Well, of course it is. Of course it is.
Like Biden.
All right, Bubba. Thanks, man.
Okay.
All right, 303. Have you ever done that? Like, something that starts to ache or pain, you got to, especially when you're old. Now you got Google. Dr. Google. Dr. Google and Dr. Watt, who's my principal doctor now, Dr. Watt just goes crazy. And I go, Doc, I read. He goes, guy's like a brain surgeon, right? And I'll go read this stuff. And I have all these great doctors. I'm a very, very, very lucky man. And I go read the stuff. And Dr. Prager, who's the cardiologist to the stars. And I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Yeah. Remember, who was it in? Remember Fred Sanford would do that. I'm coming, Elizabeth. I'm joining. I'm coming, Elizabeth. I've been through all of that stuff. And so I think when you become an old, cranky old guy, then you go, oh, what's that? Google this. And then they ask you your symptoms. And then I don't have that, Or imagine people. How many people do you know that won't go to the doctor because they don't want to know? I had a conversation with somebody that's near and dear. I said, go to the doctor. No, because they'll be. Wait a minute, go. No, then they'll tell me. I said, then go get on Dr. Google. Dr. Google will straighten your mess out. Does anybody else really Dr. Google? So it is 8:48. It's 12 before the hour. Lines are wide open, 303-696-1971. Peter Boyles for Jeff and Billy. How much longer does this last? We, when early on Monday morning with Blake had the overs and unders. He had the Vegas. He said Friday. And I said, okay, I'll go along with that. And now here we are Wednesday morning. I watched the man last night, and he has described himself I quote you as the most qualified person. Okay. He's the man. So, and Vice President Kamala Harris. Some early polling data suggests that Kamala could beat Donald Trump. Ooh. In the meantime and in between time, watching George Stephanopoulos retract that one because of the network. God, that's telling. All right. 303-6, our phone number, 303-696-1971. Who's running this country? 710 KNUS. Stay here. Peter Boyles sitting in for the fellows. It's a Wednesday morning. Thank you, everyone. July the 10th, 2012. I'm getting texts. This is what I love about this job. First of all, I'll read you. Dan Kaplis and I are having an exchange, and I just got one from Martino. With Danny, we're making a copy change, and so, but that goes like that. So I send him back. This is a response to Dan this morning while we're working. I'll make a copy change. You called the Biden deal. Let's go to Vegas. Want him to bet. He goes, thanks, my friend. This is Talk Radio Gold. Martino sends me a text this morning. Here's Biden's biggest problem. He can't make even a normal mistake that so many of us old effers make every day. Now just one minor F up, that will seal his fate. From Tom Martino. You and I, Bubba, you and I. Open lines continue. Folks on the phones, hang on. It's Wednesday morning, July 10. Peter on a Wednesday. Good morning, July the 10th, 2012. The Kelly Michaels Peter Boyles Show. Good morning, everyone. We're sitting talking off air about James Brown. 710 KNUS. This is 710 day. This is July the 10th. July, you're a woman. In his secluded bunker high atop the Hotel Smokey the Bear in downtown Pottstown, Pennsylvania, from the hotel sheets. Ladies and gentlemen, I have had, this is the most enjoyable week to work with Blake every hour on the hour.
Same here.
We were off air. So Kelly and I were talking off air.
Yeah.
About the Isley brothers, which tells you we go.
Oh, man.
You into the Isleys?
Top 3.
All right.
They're my top 3.
All right. Now, for all the money, what's behind the curtain in the new car? Name the Isley brothers.
Oh, that's horrible, man.
And
I should know.
I can only because, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Rudolph Randolph and O. Kelly Isley, and he became Kelly Isley, and they did Shout.
I should have known that.
Remember
that's impressive.
Shout.
Peter. Yes,
and they were.
Oh, man. Love that.
And I saw them. I saw them in the Syria Mosque in Pittsburgh, and we were talking about. And I did an interview with James Brown. That's a highlight. And
I bet
I kept it, and I don't keep much. Yeah, I don't keep much work, but I kept the James Brown interview. And
what's it on, reel to reel or
no? It's on a cassette.
Really?
And
I'd love to hear that.
Well,
Can you bring it in tomorrow.
I don't know if I got to bring a picture in tomorrow of me in a bar with Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams. Kelly said, I got a picture of we're in Sturgis.
Awesome.
We're at a bar. There's a couple guys in that picture that probably don't want their picture on the internet, so I won't. I'll show it to Kelly. But
you ever do James Brown in your kitchen with your socks on? Oh man,
JB. I went and saw him. I'm a kid. Yeah. Mr. Brown. And that was the only stipulation that they had where to get an interview with James Brown was you had to call him Mr. Brown, which I was more than willing to do. But
right.
Oh, yes, Mr. Brown. But
of course.
Oh, and so I said, I can introduce. We just got along. I mean, just got along great. It was a phone interview. I didn't shake his hand. Hit me. And that's when he's finding people. And if you read about him, man, he ran a bad guy.
That dude, it was a bad dude.
And so I saw him. I had his LP, and I said, I can introduce you. And we were clicking about, stuff that he had done. And he said, go ahead, Well, the guy that was, I think it was his cousin that remember the guy would come up, put the capes on him.
Yeah.
Take the capes off.
Yeah. I think it's it was a relative,
it was,
right?
please. Yeah, it was, they introduced him. And they would do,
he put the cape.
James Brown, man. I was like,
how tall was he, man?
I never met him, but I know he's a little guy.
He had to have been like 5'3" or something.
It's like Jackie Wilson, and they were just little guys. But anyhow, so I said, the hardest. I think he's the hardest working man in show business today. But I could do that guy back then. My voice is shot, but he would go, Mr. Please himself, Mr. Try Me, Mr. You Got the Power. And I did this whole JB thing, And,
absolutely.
And
oh man.
And I did the build up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and he ran the whole Soul Brother #1.
Soul Brother #1.
And then when he did the thing with the capes, when he come out and he stagger away, and they come out with the capes on him.
God,
nothing
fascinating.
Who was better? So on that show, and they would bring other acts.
Yeah.
And his band was the Flames, the Fabulous Flames.
Fabulous Flames.
A guy named Maceo Parker played the sax. And he had those same women singers. I mean, he was JB. So I take
his hair.
Oh
man, it was all print.
And Reverend Al went with him when he was a kid, and all these great stories. But
Reverend Al has his hair now.
And so I go to see him. I saw him.
I trust James Brown more.
A couple more times. So I took my son to see him.
You did?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And to his credit, Wellington Webb brought James Brown to Denver.
Oh wow.
And he played in the street. They played on Larimer Street.
Did they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And so we were able to. I was doing factory outlet commercials, and so we were able to get up and look out the windows. My ex-wife, my son, and I.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
The horn section. And the backup singers, and I mean, they're just so tight. And Maceo's,
that's right.
Maceo's not there anymore. It's all gone. But I said, that's the same act, man. When I was 16, I saw that act, and I'm an old man.
Doesn't change.
He doesn't change, and he was
tight is a great word, man. They
any of those
tight, man.
Any of those Southern bands were tight.
Yeah,
I mean, there's white guy soul brother bands. Brothers Black. It doesn't matter. The bands, they stayed together.
Yeah, They did.
I mean, look at the Allman Brothers, or look at, Leonard Skinner, or, whomever, or, JB.
Yeah.
I mean, those bands, they stayed
did.
together. Willie Nelson's band. I mean, it's the same Mickey Raphael and all those guys. It's the same band.
Guys.
Same
huh?
band.
Wow.
And I think,
Pretty cool.
That used to make, I think, ball teams work when I was a kid, that very rarely would some guy get traded. off
Right.
of a
No,
team.
that's what ruined it for me when
Yeah.
they started. I mean, it was great for athletes and players and everything. I think it ruined it for kids like me,
We got to find at least 2 James Brown tunes.
Oh, I know.
What's your favorite?
My goodness. Man, I can't think of it right now, but I have it in my head. I just
Sing it. I can do it. Sing it. I can do it.
Oh man, I cannot think of the name right now. But I'm gonna look it up right after I'm done.
Give me
Right.
that. The Isley Brothers song has to be. Shout.
I will get my favorite James Brown to you before 9:30, and I'll let Kelly know.
We'll come back on the
See you.
show. But that,
Yeah.
and if you're gonna
Oh,
do it,
my
if you're gonna do an Isley Brothers,
Oh, I'll get my
Shout.
favorite.
There's only one.
I think there are 2 or 3 other ones that are. Man, Kelly is on top.
He really is.
Because Kelly's from Michigan.
Sure, he's also an old top 40 jock.
Yeah. He
Play JB.
That's right.
I
Man.
never had a radio station that I could play JB on the air, but you know who we Hot Pants, James Brown. Somebody said Hot Pants. Ugh.
Hot Pants.
Yeah, I remember he did Hot, but the old stuff that he did Night Train.
Yes, yeah, Night
And
Train.
As a kid growing up, Night Train was the that was the song, and I'm told Sonny Liston hit the heavy bag to Night Train
in a cold. You know what Crowley's saying? In a cold sweat.
So I break out in a cold sweat.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I'm bad at names of songs, but I know I can hear it in my head.
Oh,
and it's just going.
Yeah, well, that was James Brown, man. It was like,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
and
goodness.
but he came off the streets, man. He was a tough kid.
Yeah,
I
doubt.
think he boxed. I think he
What
boxed.
what a blessing, man. His talent. Just watching that. Wow.
He's crazy on the inside, but
Oh yeah. They all are. All the great ones are nuts.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Remember he shot his wife's coat.
Oh, that's right.
He did.
I forgot about that.
Shot his wife's coat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I saw that in the
James Brown.
documentary.
Oh,
golly.
that and more.
All right, I will have it.
All
I'll
right.
have it hopefully by 9:35. I'll get it to Kelly,
JB,
and I'll be playing it all
See,
day.
This
or
is
3 or 4.
This is no longer a radio show, you know.
No. Of
This
course
is
not.
Kelly and Peter, and we talk about what we want to. Anyhow,
That's right.
let's
Here
do
we
this
go.
right. All right.
All right.
Here's the
All right.
Olsen report.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. 73 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the lower 90s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I believe that if we elect Donald Trump president again, my generation of Americans will be the first generation to leave less opportunity, not more, to the kids coming after us.
Oh, the fright, the fear of the orange man. Colorado Democratic Senator Michael Bennet wants President Biden to step down because he believes the evil dictator Trump will win in a landslide in November.
And we have 4 months to figure out how we're going to save the country from Donald Trump. And when I think about the kids that I used to work for in the Denver public schools, when I was their superintendent, most of whom are kids of color, most of whom are kids living in poverty in a country with incredibly low economic mobility, and where the poverty rates are growing, and where the economic unfairness, I think, is producing Donald Trump in many ways.
You are an old man and a fool.
Yes, Senator Bennet, because you on the left create all these problems in blue cities, sanctuary cities, enabling drug addicts on the street, soft on crime, taxes and more taxes, bigger government, smaller the individual, pushback against school choice, Denver in decay. Yes, people want to be safe. They want to live affordable life. They want good schools and government to get out of the way. Yes, that's why they're voting for Trump. Yes, you are correct. You're the problem. Colorado Republican strategist Dick Wadhams on with Pete this morning, and he sees what's happening with President Biden.
He looks like a guy who's digging in, and frankly, the congressional Democrats have folded, and they seem to be rallying everybody but Senator Bennett.
Biden spoke at the NATO summit for 13 minutes. He read the prompter. He bowed up like he wants to start World War III.
In Europe, Putin's war of aggression against Ukraine continues, and Putin wants nothing less than Ukraine's total subjugation, to end Ukraine's democracy, to destroy Ukraine's culture, and to wipe Ukraine off the map. And we know Putin won't stop at Ukraine. But make no mistake, Ukraine can and will stop Putin.
All right. Biden will chat with the new British Prime Minister today. The former president in front of 45,000 supporters in South Florida last night. He was at Doral, so he challenged Biden to a debate this week and also a round of golf.
I'm also officially challenging Cricket Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here.
Quit it.
Pull it out.
On Doral's Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world.
So every day is going to be like an adventure now with Biden and following this. The mainstream media all of a sudden vetting and acting like they're doing some journalism with a Democratic president. The doctor arrives on NBC. Tom Pitts.
You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinson's is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Some of these press conferences, it reminds me of a book they made me read in college called Ship of Fools.
Albertson's about to sell 89 Safeway stores in Colorado. That's as long as a planned merger with Kroger is approved. Stores up and down the Front Range will be sold to CNS Wholesale Grocers. A pending lawsuit is currently holding it up. The company is out of New Hampshire, so live free or die, and make sure that you keep the fried chicken near the front for me, please. And the potato salad. The Reds beat the Rockies 12-6, back at it today. Again at 5-10, 71 in Broomfield, 70 in Englewood, 73 in Denver. Pete continues.
All right, before you go.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm sitting here during the pause, and we were talking about James Brown. You and I and Kelly were talking about James Brown.
Yeah.
So the last time that I saw James Brown live, and that was the time when I got to do an interview with James Brown, it was Rocky 3, I think, or Rocky 2. It was Rocky 3 and Living in America.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
I forgot about
see,
that
and I'm thinking, well, of course, Peter. And I got a bunch of JB stuff on the motorcycle, but it's this one. And because he was James Brown was a patriot. I mean, James Brown was a big supporter of the United States of America.
That's right.
And when other people said other things, James Brown said, well, wait a minute, look who I am, look where I am.
Yeah.
So we were talking about your favorite JB. And I think as we take the turn, boss, he'll come back right after the weather. We'll play it. Thanks, Bubba. We'll do it. Thanks.
Thank
man.
you.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon. All right. Pete in for Jeff and Bill. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Sunny to partly sunny, and it's going to get hotter and hotter in the coming days. Temperatures in the low 90s. Lows tonight near 60. 90s Thursday. Upper 90s to lower 100s Friday through Sunday. Only a slight chance of isolated thunderstorms during that stretch. Nights in the 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Here he is. And I know we got folks here on the phones are blinking. We'll go here. Don, you're on a radio show. Good morning. It's a Wednesday.
Good morning, Peter. It's Rocky IV, actually.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Because that kind of dealt with the Cold War and
That's
the
right.
boxing ring.
He fought the Russian guy. You're right. Thank you.
Yeah, and then killed off Apollo Creed.
That Russian guy, who killed him? Did Clubber Lane kill Apollo, or did the Russian guy kill him?
The Russian guy.
Okay, so it wasn't Clubber.
In the fight, that.
Okay, no, fair enough.
I didn't really see the movie, but I mean the trailers were there, and I do remember "Living in America" associated with Rocky IV.
Great song. We should make it a theme song for the show.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, no, JB.
Kind of better than Ivan Moody and the Renegade.
although, but go ahead. I'm sorry, you called for a reason.
Yeah, I'm going to call for the reason. I mean, Michael Bennett, I just heard his conversations, and I mean, based on that, the Democrats are kind of running scared, knowing that, there's still that their grasp on power. I mean, they may have their blue states, but, the more you try to hang on to power, even in those states, the more challenging it is becoming to hold on to that. And it seems that they are afraid that Biden, due to his failing health, and yet let's make no mistake, it is failing, that this is the wide window that Trump was seeking, and the lawfare, is coming back to haunt him, or as Obama's favorite Obama's favorite pastor, the chickens are coming home to roost.
By the way, Clubber killed Mickey. I love the show. Jay from Louisville. Clubber killed Mickey. Mickey was it Mickey? Yeah, Mick Hanno cut me. Mick. Remember, this is important because again, it's talk radio and it does what it does. Elections are won in the middle. Any political theorist, historian, scientist that you read will talk about elections, how elections are won and how elections are lost. And elections are like prize fights. There are fighters who lose fights and there's fighters who win fights. And oftentimes the guy loses the fight as opposed to the other guy winning it. And I think that was Hillary Clinton. Having said those things, you still have to deal with, and right now we're dealing with the hardcore left and right sides of the spectrum, where the Donald Trump can do no wrong side to, if Donald Trump cured cancer, we still would hate him. On the other side, Joe Biden is, the dream come true. Over here, Joe Biden is the end of the world as we know it. Now, this election, and it's a significant election, is going to be won in the middle. What do you think the alleged soccer mom, the so-called housewife vote, the working man, any of those target demos? That's the issue, Don. It isn't whether or not,
of course,
somebody that calls a talk show every day of the week says that
is engaged in the activism, because I'm hearing from Steve Dace,
of course,
that that France and UK are bellwethers for what is coming to the United States,
and it well may be,
very well, because the conservatives there, are not moving to the right as they are supposed to, and that's, what, if they're going to be liberal, the Tories or right wing, and right wing in France is totally different
I agree
from
with
what is
you,
here.
but
then you know what? Let's just vote for the Labour Party or Socialist Party of America.
But I do believe there's part of the modern Democratic Party that is an SWP party. It's a Socialist Workers Party. They're Trotskyist. I mean, if you compare what the Trotskyist Party was doing in Minnesota in the Great American Depression, you'll see it replicated itself in parts of the Democrats today. And conversely, the other side as well. But that's with fairness.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the Republican Party basically is starting to back off on the abortion issue bit, going with what Trump is saying about leaving it to the states rather than going all in to abolish it, or going with what the Europeans did with these compromises, 14 weeks, 15, rather than abortion on demand, which the likes of Larry Lader were pushing.
But Don, I love this call, but you can't rule unless you win. And so-called reproductive rights, or whatever you want to call it, it is going to be, if I'm the Democrats, that's going to be one of my lead ads. And we're talking about the court, we're talking about Donald Trump, all those kinds of things. And it is a huge, I mean, there are voters that are called single issue voters. Guns, those are single issue voters. Abortion, single issue voters.
Those are the big ones.
And you know what? And the money comes in and the money goes out and the music goes round and round, but people, they vote that way. And so if nothing else, Trump is astute. And it got him there, but he's also more than willing to get out of it the same way. And so, if I were whispering in his ear, I'd tell him the same thing. Back away from this. It can only hurt you.
And I think he's starting to listen to his consultants more, especially now with Biden and the Democrats saying, some of them saying, you got to be pushing aside. And, I think this is going to drag out for a while, because I think the Democrats want to win, but Biden, has wanted this for so long.
Don, they don't have the time. I mean, this isn't.
They're running it out.
They're on the clock right now. And here's July 10. You still got to go to that, whatever that wild card's going to be in Chicago. And it's not lost on smart people that they're going right back to where 68 happened, and with Dick Daley and Hubert Humphrey. And I'm telling you, man, that has,
the Democrats, and apparently the Democrats don't want Bernie Sanders to
even show up,
have a clear shot for the presidency.
I agree. And because he is a socialist.
He's admitted it.
Oh, of course he has. And he's probably
not unlike some of these Democrats that, I'm a free thinker. I like America, but I think we shouldn't have prayer in public school. And
again,
but and then they take on certain traits.
I don't think we should do that in public schools either. I mean, whose prayer? Who's what? I mean, it's just that kind of stuff has been.
When it comes from you, I understand, but when it comes from Annie Laurie Gaylor, I see another agenda she wants to push.
Now, listen, I am on the turnaround. I love your call. Very smart.
You have a good one, Peter.
Thank you, Bubba. You too. All right, 303 phone number. There's one line open. 303-696-1971. I'm Peter Boyles. We're back here tomorrow morning 5. We'll do it again. The premier question, does this guy look to you like he's leaving? Doesn't look it to me. That's Joe Biden. Stay here.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. President Joe Biden has promised more air defences for Ukraine at the opening of the annual NATO summit. It's the 75th anniversary of the alliance, with support for Ukraine topping the agenda. But the president is fighting for political survival with questions about his age and mental capacity. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
Welcoming the NATO leaders to Washington, Joe Biden hailed the alliance and promised that Ukraine can and will stop Russia. Any of his critics expecting to see a stumble like the presidential debate would have been disappointed. But this wasn't evidence that he can handle high-pressure situations because he read off a teleprompter throughout. That opportunity will come on Thursday when he faces an unscripted press conference, the first since that disastrous debate.
Tourists will be rewarded with free drinks or activities if they take part in environmentally friendly tasks whilst visiting Copenhagen. Everything from litter picking to travelling around the Danish capital by bicycle will be rewarded under a new pilot scheme being trialled later this month. The aim is to ease the environmental burden of tourism on the city and persuade people to act more sustainably whilst visiting. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Clubber Lang. Shane and Horsley Overs. And you think to yourself, that's really smart. That's smart stuff. Given the insanity of burning pride flags, this is the smart thing to do. All right. With full lines, this is James. James, thanks. You're on the radio show. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter. It's always a lively radio show with you on it. We have a saying in recovery. I've been clean for 15 years plus now.
All right.
If it doesn't come out in the wash, it'll come out in the rinse. And anybody, Democrat or Republican, who has watched Joe Biden over the last 4 years has not been able to admit that there's something wrong with him. And they just voted for him because they hated Trump. And, whatever that may be, it's the truth. And to me, I think Trump's going to win if he doesn't shoot himself in the foot. He shuts his mouth and he doesn't become arrogant and just work for all the people in America, not just the Republicans. He really needs to.
You said a couple of things. One is, like our disease, our shared disease, it's degenerative. But alcoholism is, people, if they don't know, they should know, is worse tomorrow than it is today. It's a degenerative disease. Same thing is true with what's going on, whatever is going on with Joe. It's clearly going on, but it's degenerative. It was like when he won 4 years ago, it wasn't this bad. I mean, I think that and so now he's this guy. And, first of all, congratulations on 15 years, but this is going to get worse before it gets better. Anybody that thinks that Joe can withstand this is really whistling past the graveyard, as my grandma would say. He can't get better. It's like you and I drinking. Do you think we're going to get better while we drank? That's the idiot. That's the idiocy of the stupid mayor and his program of housing first. I mean, come on. You and I know what needs to happen. So
yeah, we do. Yeah. Tough love. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
But,
how does it end, James? How does it end?
Well, it ends by you and Stephen Tubbs going national with the radio show.
That ain't gonna happen either.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Bubba. Thank you. All right, 710 KNUS Denver's Talk Station. We go to Bob on line 3. Bob, hey, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I have a off-topic topic.
It's okay.
A couple of Saturdays ago, you briefly mentioned that you thought the Ali Liston fight was fixed.
I thought both of them were.
And you thought both of them were.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what you based that upon, and I did some internet searching on that myself, and there's various theories out there.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this one internet spot where a guy studied Muhammad's fighting style, and he showed, pictures of a couple of his fights where
I know the study. I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was interesting in that it showed that Muhammad knocked out several of his opponents by hitting them on the side of the jaw.
I know.
And he did it after his opponent had thrown a left at him.
Yeah.
And then he evaded that, and then he came back with the right and hit him at the side of the jaw and knocked him out. So
I think most boxing historians, I say most, believe, not trying to make myself right, but believe what I believe. Sonny, first of all, Sonny was totally mobbed up. And the smart money, the big betting money, was on Sonny. And the odds were Muhammad, or then Cassius Clay, could not win that fight. So what the mob did is they loaded up on Cassius Marcellus Clay to win the fight. And the fight went off at like 8 or 9 to 1 that Sonny would just destroy him. So Sonny was mobbed up. And so they made tremendous money on Sonny Liston not standing up for coming out of the corner. The next go round was Sonny was in fear of the Muslims. And there was still this other thing that hung over him as well. And Sonny knew there was no sense in going ahead with it and just, took a dive. I'm a Sonny fan. I think Sonny's a misunderstood fighter. I'm a huge Clay, as they said then, and of course Muhammad Ali fan. But I'm a believer in what I've read about it. And I'm not trying to run you off, Bob, or tell you you're wrong. But boy, so many of these guys, they even went in the dressing rooms and said, "Hey, where'd that punch come from?"
Yeah. Well, my counter to that would be, I looked at the second fight, which just lasted one round, and then you would wonder how much sense it would make to throw the fight in the first round.
Well, again, throwing fights or working fights. I was lucky enough to spend time with Jake LaMotta, and LaMotta threw a fight, and I think the other guy's name was, don't hold me to it, was Collins or Collier. Oh no, it was Fox. It was the Fox fight, and the mob loaded up, and the fight game was being controlled by a guy named Frankie Carbo, who I think he was a Gambino or a Bonanno or somebody. And they really controlled prize fighting. And to get the title fight that Rocky wanted, that Jake wanted, he had to go take the count or go take the price, as they said, on a fighter, so the mob could make all the money they wanted to make, and then Jake got the shot. And most boxing historians believe that Sonny went in the tank. He was always been a mob guy. He'd been a leg breaker for the mob. And he'd been in the penitentiary, like that's what that is. Ron Lau, who I became very good friends with, we're in a Ron did time, hard time. So really, I love your call because I love talking about that stuff. But I think, because you would not know, but I think Sonny went down on both of those.
Yeah, well, I watched the replay on the second fight, and just watching Sonny, he was taking it seriously. And then, like I said, the video showed that he
they tried
counterpunched and hit him in the left side of his jaw.
There's also a belief in that fight, and I'm a geek about those fights. It doesn't mean I know, but that they put something on Sonny's gloves and they rubbed it in Muhammad's eyes, whether or not it was intentional or unintentional. But Muhammad and Freddie Pacheco and those guys talked about it. That when Muhammad, or then he was Cassius Clay, came back and sat down, he said, "Cut the gloves off me." His eyes were on fire. And they poured water in his eyes, and Freddie kept him where he was. And he went back and he quote, wins the fight. So, prize fighting, it's a love of my life, but at the same time, it carries with it everything that you and I are talking about. And
yeah,
well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, so you've also talked about the Alzado Ali fight.
Oh man, I was there
a couple of times.
I was there.
Yeah, I was there. I was there also. And, it happened in...
Yes, it did.
in mid-July. Yeah,
yes,
it happened.
Yep.
It happened.
Yep.
And, it was really hot. It was
yes,
at
it was.
Mile High Stadium.
Yes, it was.
And I guess Lyle thought he would sell it out, but there were like 20,000 people showed up.
Well, yeah, it was like Alan Berg was alive back then, and with Alzado, and there's a guy named Danny Davis was a disc jockey, and all those guys were in there trying to hype that fight and encourage that fight. And Alzado thought that this is what I watched and listened to afterward and before. Alzado was going to take that fight to him. He thought that he could, and Alzado was a monster, but he thought he could beat Muhammad. And people that were closer to that fight, they said you could hear that Alzado let a couple go hard. Like monster punches. And apparently Muhammad steps back he had that rapid left hand, boom, 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 boom. And he hit him so quick. And then he pulled him in and lifted him. How prize fighters, you can get your arms up under the other guy's armpits and lift them. and he lifted him, and he is alleged to have said to Alzado, you want to do it hard? You want to do it easy? And he pushed him back. Muhammad was big. And he shoved him back. And Alzado got the point. Like, I'm not going to tangle with this guy. And so they did an exhibition fight. But according to some people, and again, just telling you what I heard, Alzado had visions of going out there and tagging Muhammad, staggering him, or even dropping him.
I believe that. I mean, he went after him and tried to take him out with just one punch.
Yep.
But, Muhammad's style was he would evade punches by leaning backwards and nobody could hit him.
Couldn't hit.
So when Lyle tried to do that, he missed him. I remember seeing that very, very clearly. And the other thing I remember about it, the fight went 8 rounds.
Yes, it did.
Was in the middle of July. It was really hot.
Oh.
And what I recall was Muhammad didn't break a sweat. And he said that he didn't train for it at all. That was part of the pre-fight.
It was an exhibition. It wasn't to be.
Yeah.
But Alzado,
it was an exhibition.
He's taking it serious, and Muhammad's taking it for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Again,
exactly.
Bob,
Exactly.
I'm glad you said, because that's that moment. You look, and I'm a big fan of Ali. I'm a huge Ali fan. But you look past it, and suppose Alzado would have gotten lucky. I mean, I bet Alzado could hit like a ton of bricks. And yet you see these punches that Muhammad withered when he fought the Fraser fights, which are, to me, are the fight in Manila. And I tell people about fight books. There's the best fight. I just finished. I got it laying right next to me, Billy Conn and Joe Louis. But there's a book entitled Ghosts of Manila. And it is the absolute one of the, if not in the top 2 or 3 prize fighting books I've ever read in my life. And Muhammad said, me and Joe went to Manila champions and we came home ghosts. That fight in Manila took it out of both of them. Now that was a fight. I mean, that was whatever. And I've watched, the videos of it, and it surpasses when Muhammad takes the title back off of George Foreman in Zaire. That was a fight, but that fight in the PI, who those guys were, I don't know, Bob. That's what makes great champions. Your calls.
You've mentioned that book before. I guess I'll look into it.
Oh, please.
And, you mentioned Alan Berg.
Yeah.
And my wife knew Kevin Flynn pretty well,
Oh,
and
man.
Kevin gave her a copy of
the book,
The Silent Brotherhood.
It's the book, yeah.
So when the anniversary came up, I dug it out and was reading it, and it was
it's the book.
It was very, very detailed, I thought.
It's the best book ever on whatever, and on that horribleness. And that's the book that's being made into a movie as we speak. I'm over time. Good call. Thanks, man. I enjoyed it. Thank you a lot, everybody. All right, so what do we do here, boss? Keep rolling or take a break, the man said. I'm back here tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Let's take a break. Morning, everybody. The 710, I love it, 710, 2024, 710 KNUS in hot weather. When you hot, you hot. Coming up on time, we'll go back to the phones. We go to Jim. Hey, Jim, you're on a radio show. Good morning and thank you.
Hey, good morning, Pete. It's great to talk to you.
Well, thank you.
I sure do miss you on the radio, man.
Well, I'm here today.
Right on. Well, hey, I wanted to thank you for being right about January 6th, man. I almost went, and you said don't go, man. So I owe you one for that.
Well, no, I don't think I ever told anybody not to go. I don't recall telling people not to go to that. I just knew.
I remember you were talking about it, and you said, don't go. It's a trap.
I never said that.
I'm
sorry. I never said that.
Well, it was maybe that was the gist of the conversation.
No, it wasn't. Who was trapping who?
Well, seems like it was a really bad thing. Most people got treated very much unlike most protesters got treated anywhere else.
Well, you can't storm the Capitol of the United States of America, Jim. I'm sorry, but I do not.
No, I don't excuse all of them.
Well, let's start. Let's start at the beginning. I never told anyone not to go. It was a trap, or not. I never told anyone not to go.
Well, then I apologize.
Don't have to apologize. It's not what I did. It's not. I mean,
Well, then I apologize for attesting it to you.
Don't apologize. But it wasn't me.
So, all right. Well, sorry. Thanks anyhow. Bye.
Okay. 303-696-1971. So we'll do it again tomorrow morning. I don't know if we're going to be any closer to the bone or not, but it is an interesting time for our country and what is to happen. And this man literally has to get out of there, or he doesn't. If he doesn't get out, then other things will happen. And that's the one thing that they have to understand. And I don't know if they do, but we're all going to school, aren't we? And when Michael Bennett says he does not believe that Joe can win, that has to echo somewhere. Thank you very much, Kelly Michaels, and of course, Blake Olson. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 5. We do it one more time. 710 KNUS on 710 Day. Thanks. Cal Thomas is next.